But he's hiding a huge secret. He's got a special weapon that can totally one-shot that monster. It's a brutal war where magic makes the whole fight totally one-sided. There's all kinds of gear that gives you massive boosts while you're out on the road. You only get all this loot after wrecking the boss, and it's actually a special bonus for clearing the dungeon for the very first time. She's the only one who gets a totally endless supply of it. Welcome to the non-prey dungeon, where you'll need to be at least level 80 just to survive. The guy screams at the kid to move it, making him sprint while forcing him to do useless chores just to flex on him and make him look small. This grown-up-looking dude smirked and told the kid to distract the monster, but his smile was so twisted it terrified everyone watching. Henri Mitt confidently said yes, and it was super obvious he was dying for the job because he seriously needed the cash. He lugged his giant backpack forward as the crowd behind him started yelling for him to finally use his garbage power, and you could tell right away that everyone absolutely hated this guy. The kid goes down hard because his powers are totally useless here. The guys in the back spotted the monster and started making fun of it, totally loving how much the little kids were freaking out. Rise has an evasion skill, and he's totally terrified as he screams the name of his power while trying to dodge that monster. Right away, the system pinged to show his evasion skill had officially kicked in. That monster was swinging with everything it had, but it couldn't land a single hit because every attack just phased right through the kid like he wasn't even there. Being able to dodge is the secret to making sure those enemies never even touch you. He just kept dodging and bolting away from the monster, ducking into every corner he could find. The guy who sent him on this mission just started laughing his head off. The whole squad cracked up watching him run for his life, knowing that crazy power is literally impossible to beat. He knew exactly what was going on. Those guys just laughed in his face and yelled at him to get lost. He had to just shut up and back away. He couldn't really talk back. One of the guys jumped out ready to scrap, and after taking down the monster in a flash, he already had the ladder set up on the ground. He watched their epic adventures in total awe, wishing he could be just like them, but he felt way too weak and didn't have the skills to make it happen. He stepped right up with a massive grin, shouting that those monsters were nowhere near him and showing everyone just how much he believed in his own power. The monsters bolted away at insane speeds while the squad held their ground and made sure nothing could get near them again. Henry's jaw dropped as he stared at the insane scene in front of him. He was always obsessed with these epic hero showdowns. Deep down, he dreamed of going on his own adventures, and the crew rolled back into the city as total legends, flexing their massive pile of cash and trophy while the whole town went wild celebrating their huge win. Some guy just chucked a handful of coins right at the kid's face and told him this was just his destiny. Everyone totally underestimated him. They thought he was just a useless brat who... Henry dove headfirst into the bushes to hunt for more coins while his teammates just stood there laughing their heads off. He didn't even care about the teasing because he needed that money way too. He dreamed of getting a skill to fight, travel, and save the world, just so people would cheer for his victories and treat him like a total legend. He holds the coin up to the sun, and it finally hits him. He could have been rich and lived a totally different life. He's got a little sister he looks after, and he just burst into the room with a massive grin, showing off a tiny jar in his hands. He walks into the room where his sister is resting and looks over at Ellerit. Even though she's totally knocked out, he's just hyped to finally see her again. She grabbed a basin of water to wash her sister, a routine she was totally used to by now because she knew it was the only way to keep her healthy. Henry started telling his little sister how he was a total VIP today, since he always shares his small wins with her, hoping she'll get hyped about them finding the treasure. He admitted his crew was pretty wild, but they let him stay, which was huge because he was desperate for cash to pay for the medical bills of the person he loved most. After looking after his sister, he realized she stayed perfectly clean even though she was stuck in bed, and that meant everything to him. He grabs a small jar of medicine and preps another dose, totally desperate to heal up as fast as he can. He carefully helped his sister drink the medicine, telling her not to spill a single drop since it cost a fortune, and she needed every bit to get healthy. He gave his sister a gentle look, holding on to the hope that a miracle would happen so Ellerit could finally get out of bed and smile like she used to. He suddenly remembered that quick chat with the doctor and exactly how she spoke to him. This scary lady warned him that he had to give her medicine every single day, or Ellerit would die, and since she was his whole world, he wasn't about to let that happen. Ree's eyes went wide when he saw the price tag on that medicine, but the woman just told him to relax and do exactly what she said. They could have actually delayed Ellerit's death for a long time, giving her a real chance to heal up and stay alive as long as possible. He told his sister not to sweat the money because he'd find a way to get it, since her health was way more important than any medical bill. He swore he'd get the cash no matter what, and even though he knew it would totally wreck his body, he didn't care because saving his sister was the only thing that mattered. A normal job won't pay the bills, so Henri has to work for Guillermo no matter how brutal it gets because he needs that cash right now. But there was one huge problem that made this whole mess way harder to handle. This dude just told him he wasn't needed anymore and kicked him off the team, not even caring that Henri was broke and had to work to save his sick sister. Henri hit the ground in total shock, wondering how this was even possible, while the guy just looked down with a wicked smirk like Henri was straight-up garbage. He pointed out the kid's busted arm and asked how he'd even work as a porter now, basically calling him useless since he can't do a single thing. The gear was way heavier than usual, so he couldn't dodge the hit, but Henri tried to defend himself by saying he still got the delivery done safely. He got smacked so hard that his tiny body went flying across the room, smashing through every piece of furniture in his path. The guy just smirked and warned him he wouldn't say it twice, because he was totally over this weak kid and didn't need him anymore. The kid was slumped on the ground looking totally miserable, and there was a slab of meat just sitting right on his head. Out of nowhere, Henri starts screaming that he wants to be moved to a different team. He introduces himself as Enricret and says he's only 13 years old. Henri was down on his knees begging for a job as a loader, but when the guy pointed at his eye and asked if he was okay, Henri just snapped that he wasn't going to let a tiny scratch stop him. He dropped to his knees begging to be let in, and the boy actually stopped to think it over. Guillermo scowled, and Henri, the hero-to-be, spotted it instantly. The knight itself asks the boy if he even remembers his own name. Out of nowhere, the whole tavern screamed at the same time, "Level 1 prisoner!" The guys kept getting in his face, telling him he was dead weight and that the team didn't even need him. Guillermo yells out to the crowd, asking who's actually going to step up and take this guy onto their team. Henri got tossed right onto the street and told he's never allowed back in that tavern again. The guy just smirked and said he wouldn't be shocked to find the kid dead in a ditch, and since everyone was terrified of Guillermo, nobody dared to take Henri in. Now that Henri was all by himself, he started figuring out his next big move. If he doesn't bring in the cash, then Ellerit is in big trouble. He thought about his sister and all her struggles, and his eyes shot wide open. He slowly picked himself up, being super careful with his injuries, as the whole truth finally clicked in his head. He's standing in some random alley, just staring down at his hand. He stared at the tiny bit of cash in his hand and realized he was still way short for the medicine. He'd already sold off every single thing he owned for quick cash. He even pawned the last gift his dad ever gave him. Now his house was completely empty. Henri was totally lost and he braced himself, realized he had to tackle the dungeon solo, and took off right away. He gave the small sword a hit and checked his stats to see his new power. The kid was left wondering what his next move should be, since he was really just your average adventurer. He could just take out the monster and sell its loot for some quick cash. But he's totally helpless on his own. And let's be real, Henri couldn't even win a fight against a slug. He scoped out the scene until a crazy idea finally popped into his head. Does this guy even have a shot at winning? This only goes down deep in the heart of the forest. We're starting off in the Feasel dungeon, the perfect place for total beginners. Walking through those endless dungeon hallways, Henri was totally blown away by how huge and spooky everything was. His eyes went totally wide the second he spotted that kobold. Annery ducked behind the corner, suddenly realizing this place is way too dangerous for anyone under level 4. He was trying to figure out how to beat the first level, so he grabbed a small sword and asked his dad to help him out. Henri started wondering if he could actually make some serious cash inside the dungeon. Cobalt spotted the kid who suddenly appeared and flashed his fangs, getting ready to strike. The kid is figuring out every single thing he possibly can. He had to get the job done in dodge, and he actually pulled it off using this absolute beast. He ducked around the corner and collapsed, panting hard while trying to figure out if his plan worked. And after a few minutes, he realized it actually went perfectly. He kept pushing forward, hunting for loot, and his luck finally kicked in when he spotted a small chest. He creeps closer and slowly pulls the chest open. Inside, a tiny plant was growing, and Henry was hyped because he finally found the antidote. He did the math and realized he could sell it for 5L, making him even more hyped. He realized this wasn't even close to enough, and he still had to hunt down 4,956 more L letters. Henry was hyped because he could finally start making some cash too. He scrambled away from even more monsters, feeling pretty hyped that he could dodge all their attacks like a pro. You could see it in his eyes. He was going to get that money for his sister's medicine no matter what. He finds another chest and sits right down, dying to know what kind of loot is waiting for him. He slowly cracked the lid open, but there was absolutely nothing inside. It was the same deal the whole time. No matter how many chests he cracked open, every single one was totally empty. Henri walked up to the new chest and put his hands together, basically begging for there to be something, anything, inside. But once again I found absolutely nothing. As he sprints through the halls, he wonders if the last group actually finished the job. The guy was gasping for air, but he just wouldn't quit. He reaches these massive doors and realizes his deep search led him straight to the boss's office. Henri checks the map and realizes there's no way he's going home with nothing. He looked down at the map and realized there was still one spot he hadn't checked out yet. The boss is waiting at the very end of the dungeon, and right behind him is a secret room that only opens up once you take him down. This reward zone looks totally awesome because you just know there's a treasure chest waiting right here. After crushing the dungeon, he grabs some sick loot and sells it for a mountain of cash. Henri knows he's got no other choice if he wants to get his sister the medicine she needs. Out of nowhere, a massive blue howl ripped through the air right next to them. Henri whispered that he didn't have a single second to waste on these goblins. The monster crawled back out of the shadows, and Henri's whole body just completely froze up. Out of nowhere, a bunch more showed up, and the kid started shaking like crazy. Out of nowhere, a whole swarm of goblins lunged from the shadows to attack, and Henri started totally freaking out. He flailed his arms and begged the monsters to stop, shouting that his sick sister was waiting for him at home. He says she's way better than he deserves, thinking back to how he'd carefully feed her and apologize for serving the same meal again. But she just smiled and told him she loved every bit of it. Yunrep sticks his hands out, totally freaking out, and asks the monsters if they can just have a picnic together before they make him their lunch. He's not moving an inch until his sister is back on her feet. The kobolds ignored him and lunged straight for the kill, but Henri wasn't shocked at all since he knew exactly how these monsters rolled. He's literally begging the animals to quit it while dodging every single hit like a total pro. He slumped against the door, realizing that knowing how to dodge is actually a legit skill. The plan would have been perfect if the boss was actually in that room, but he was already behind them, smashing his way through the door. He screamed that he was ready to die as he slowly backed away from the dogs and stepped to the other side of the door. Out of nowhere, he slams into the ground and spots these massive doors right in front of him. He looked around and realized he was actually standing right inside the room. Unre looked back and totally freaked out when he saw another monster standing right there. Cobalt towered over the other monsters and slowly warned them that once you step into the boss room, there's no turning back. Not until you take the owner down for good. Turns out it was a shapeshifter, and you'd better be at least level 8 if you want to survive. There are 6 of them in the squad, and Henri tries to crush the tiny life in his hands just as he notices his boss standing right in front of him. There's no way he wins this. That monster is literally going to rip him to shreds. He kept telling himself he was going to make it, and he didn't care at all about being solo or still stuck on the first floor. He's 100% making it back alive no matter what. He came up with a plan on the spot and barely dodged the monster's hit. Henri saw that insane strength and knew one hit from the werewolf would be game over. This is it, the absolute last time he's ever going to do this. The guys saw the monster getting ready to strike with both of its huge paws. He used his magic to dodge the attack as fast as he possibly could. He slips past the strike again and clenches his knife even harder. He's mostly worried about letting everyone down if he's not prepared. But then the shapeshifter suddenly whips around. Henri was stressing about how to stay alive when he suddenly spotted a massive paw, showing him exactly where to go. That monster's massive paw was already zooming toward the kid, ready to squash him like a tiny bug in one hit. He didn't even panic and triggered his dodge skill again. He barely dodged a massive hit from the werewolf. He threw a massive hit out of nowhere that almost connected, but the kid yelled out with zero fear that he can dodge anything because he sees every move coming, every single time those monsters go on the attack. The kid was finally starting to figure out exactly how he moves. Whether the beast swings, lunges with both paws, or balances on its front legs, Henri's got a special counter ready for every single move. He snapped out of it and focused up just as the monster suddenly lunged at him with both paws. You've got to dodge fast if you want to get out of the danger zone. Even when this beast goes for a massive strike, it doesn't always swing with both paws. All you gotta do now is back up and get some distance. The werewolf dropped onto its front paws, and it had to dodge right that second. Henry knows that if he stays totally locked in, there's no way that monster can touch him. Suddenly, he sees an opening and charges in to strike while the monster is wide open, swearing he'll make it back in one piece. He heads back home where Ellerit is already waiting for him. He jammed the knife right into the werewolf's back, but the beast didn't even feel a thing. Henry looked at the monster with hope in his eyes and asked if it seriously didn't hurt at all. He started swinging his knife like crazy, screaming for the monster to hit him just so his HP would go down a bit. With tears streaming down his face, the kid's only dream is to land one solid hit and finally do some real damage. He decided to keep slashing at the werewolf with his knife until he finally took the beast down. Suddenly, the werewolf snatched Henry by the head and hoisted him into the air, making him realize he never stood a chance against this beast that didn't have a single scratch on it. He let out a loud curse as it finally hit him. He was totally trapped. The kid screams that he can see every single monster attack coming before it even happens. You can totally dodge every single one of them. He's giving it everything he's got, but he still just can't get the win. Henry starts shouting apologies to his sister for being so weak, while Sonia just grabs his massive paw and gives it a shake. He thinks dodging is basically the most useless skill you could have. Out of nowhere, the werewolf let go of the kid and just shoved him back hard. The knife shattered into pieces, but Henri was just glad he held on until the very end, which made him wonder how his dad actually died in this same dungeon. He pictured his little sister's face and just kept saying sorry to her over and over again. He was dying to hear her soft voice just one more time. Out of nowhere, Ellerit's voice blasted through his head, and she actually sounded super hopeful. Henry's eyes went wide when he heard her voice, but then he looked around and realized he was flying headfirst into a wall. He pressed his back against the wall, desperate to brace himself for the hit he knew was coming. If he slams into that wall, it's game over, so his only choice is to use his skills and dodge at the last second. Then, out of nowhere, he starts slowly passing right through the solid wall. He didn't even open his eyes as he used his powers to phase straight through the wall. He just crumpled to the floor, not even feeling the wall he was supposed to slam into. He looked up, but he had no clue what just went down. For a second, he thought he'd already slammed into the wall, so he quickly looked around the room to see what was going on. A massive chest was sitting right in front of him, and he couldn't even believe his eyes. As he walked up to him, he spotted a massive traveler's sword glowing like crazy in the pitch-black cave. Annie already knew the payout for this dungeon by heart, and he made sure that sword was going to bring in the big bucks just like he thought. It's the exact same room where they hand out all the rewards, but he knew deep down that the boss wasn't finished yet. He walks up to the wall and starts feeling around, trying to figure out how he just phased right through it. He gripped his sword tight, just trying to wrap his head around how everything had even gotten this crazy. Up until now, he was getting roasted non-stop all because of that guy. That guy from the last team just smirked and yelled that the kid's power was totally trash. But somehow, Henri still walked away with an award for getting the job done. Okay, maybe this skill is actually way cooler than I thought. Henri breaks into a huge grin when he realizes he's actually going to make it back home in one piece. Welcome to Garibos, the city where all the action happens. With dungeons popping up everywhere, this city has become the ultimate playground for anyone who calls themselves a real adventurer. In this world, money and power are the only things that call the shots. In this world, making money is a total gamble, so a guy from the outskirts asks this dude if he's actually rich or just a common thief, but the guy just waves his hands and insists he's got it all wrong. He whips out a sword and tells everyone he's super desperate to sell it. He carefully picked up the blade and checked it out from every angle, realizing that if he couldn't flip this for a huge profit, he knew he couldn't save his sister without the cash, so he prayed the sword would be worth at least 5,000. The guy behind the counter offered the kid 30 grand. The kid's eyes totally lit up at the massive amount, since it was enough to pay for almost a whole week of medicine. He sprinted all the way home, laughing his head off. He was in a total rush to get back to his sister. He slammed the door open and yelled that he finally got the medicine for her. He realized that if she didn't get her meds at least once a day, things were going to end in a total disaster. Henri just grinned, knowing she was finished. feeling super hyped that he actually reached her in time. He rested his head on the bed and told his sister that even back when he first joined Guillermo's crew, he was the one who scored the medicine all by himself. He thought back to Ellerit holding him tight and always cheering him on, realizing she'd been by his side way more than he ever knew. But he's definitely not the same guy anymore. He's heading right back to the Facile dungeon today for another run. Yesterday, he actually snuck into the reward room without even fighting the boss just by dodging, and if he masters that move, he'll be unstoppable. He's 100% sure he can afford that medicine every single day now, and you can hear in his voice that he's totally ready to make his move. Unre headed back to the wall and tried to walk right through it to see if it would actually work. He used every trick he knew, but he still couldn't get past that wall. Onora gave it a few more shots, but he couldn't even get close to the level he hit yesterday. Then he remembered the werewolf tossing him like trash, and he totally blacked out the moment he slammed into that wall. He needs a serious power boost, and since he got slammed right through a wall yesterday, he just has to recreate that same insane force to win. He sprinted toward the wall with everything he had, praying it would work, and triggered his dodge skill. The wall just shoved him right back, and as he went rolling, it was clear his little trick was a total fail. Out of nowhere, two guys walk up to him, totally confused about why he's there and demanding to know what his deal is. Everyone cracked up with Orya, joking that he wouldn't level up just by smashing his head against the wall, but he didn't even care because he was too busy trying to figure out how to get to the other side. Henri sat there wondering what his next move should be since he was totally clueless. Walls can't use any skills at all, and he finally figures out that you can only dodge when the enemy is actually swinging at you. But wait, how did he even pull that off last time? He stares at the wall looking totally crushed, having no clue what his next move is. He was forced to go through every single rule from yesterday all over again. Suddenly, it hit him that if he didn't pull this off, he was totally dead. But the werewolf already spotted him, and there was no way he was getting away now. Henri grips the knife tight, knowing this is his one big shot and he's definitely not about to blow it. He got super lucky because he remembered exactly how he dodged that move yesterday. And what if it strikes again the second that monster is wide open? The monster grabbed its head again, doing the exact same thing it did before. He knew he had to make a move right now, because if he didn't, he was going to get pinned against the wall just like yesterday. And just like that, the monster slammed the kid back with insane power. He slammed into the wall and realized that if this didn't work, he was stuck in a dead end with no easy way out. He was seriously praying that everything would just work out. He squeezed his eyes shut and popped his evasion skill to dodge the hit. Henri actually pulled it off and flew straight through the wall. He was so hyped he finished the task, realizing he had to smash into the wall while getting attacked just to trigger his dodge. The kid was super stoked as he ran for the chest, realizing he could snag the loot without even fighting the boss. But even with a setup like that, there's a major catch. A guy from the guild told the kid that he could only grab this reward one time. You can take down the boss 1,000,000 times, but the loot will never be as hype as that first drop, and that's just the life of a traveler. This thing is worth a literal fortune. So Henri slowly cracked open the chest, not really expecting to find anything as epic as that last sword. He looked back and saw that sword buried right in his friend's chest, and he was totally losing his mind. He flipped the item again and walked away with another 30,000 bucks. The kid was totally speechless and couldn't even find the words to answer him. He was super nervous that the seller would realize something was up. His voice shook as he called finding that traveler's sword a total miracle, and the seller just stood there in silence, trying to figure out how to respond. The guy just smirked and said there's a tiny chance of getting another one. But hey, it happens sometimes. He gave the kid a pat on the shoulder and told him he's a huge fan of anyone who sells him cool stuff. He was totally shocked, wondering if this was all just a crazy dream. He dumped all his hard-earned cash onto the bed and asked his sister what the move was now that he was finally loaded. The kid slowly counted up his earnings and realized he was sitting on a total mountain of cash. He tallied it all up to a massive 41,500 liters. Onari was hyped and kept counting his cash because he'd never been this rich, and now he could finally take care of his sister. He started daydreaming about all the stuff he could buy with that cash, like a massive pile of food. He suddenly shook those thoughts off, knowing they'd just be a total waste on his sister. He gently washed his sister and swore he wouldn't spend a single dime on his own dreams until she was finally back on her feet. Every bit of that cash is going toward medicine, and Henry's still blown away that he actually raked in another 30,000. And he got all this without even taking down the boss. He flipped a coin and warned them that his luck was definitely going to run out next time. But on that third try, his luck finally kicked in. He pops open the chest and finds that traveling sword again, and man, he's about to be absolutely loaded. Henry started to wonder if this whole mess was happening just because he didn't finish off the boss. If this is for real, is he actually going to keep getting that traveling sword? This world is packed with all sorts of dungeons, and every single one gives you a totally unique prize for clearing it. This stuff is worth a fortune, and Henry can just grab every bit of it without any limits, and he doesn't even have to take down the boss. He had no clue that just one vision would open up so many crazy paths for him. It had been forever since he felt this hype. What if one of the prizes is actually the medicine his sister needs? He stopped dead in his tracks, realizing that selling the sword at the same spot would look way too sketchy. He shook his head, wondering where he could even find sleep to sell, when suddenly someone called out to him. A voice chimed in about his recent sales, and Henry knew that voice instantly. He'd recognize it out of 1,000 others. Guillermo flashed a smile and told them that stealing is actually a pretty bad move. The kid froze up and demanded to know what they were even talking about. A massive crowd is huddled in a circle. Everyone's buzzing and trying to get a peek at what's going on. This mysterious girl was super curious about what the whole crowd was up to. Henry was flat on the ground, totally wrecked and barely able to move. He had no idea why he just got beat up, and everyone else was wondering where the heck the guards went. Guillermo smirked as he gripped Henry's old sword, calling the kid a total thief because he knew the boy snagged that traveler's blade all on his own. He put his sword down and admitted he had no clue the kid was actually this powerful. He has no idea why he's too weak to just speak up and say he didn't do it. Guillermo flashed a huge grin and told the kid he was about to hand over every single thing he'd swiped. Henry was totally panicking, scared he wouldn't be able to say a single word back. The guy balled up his fist and told him he should have just said yes before winding up for a massive punch. Out of nowhere, the guards burst in and started yelling to find out what was going on. They yelled at the top of their lungs to get the guy to notice them. The guy with the Iroquoises walked right up to one of them and reminded him that Guillermo is easily one of the top 3 most important people around. He tossed him a bag of gold to make sure the soldiers kept their mouths shut about what they just saw. He realized all over again that in this world, money is the only thing that calls the shots. Out of nowhere, the girl blurted out that Guillermo's smile was way too cocky. Out of nowhere, a bolt of lightning zaps the man but completely avoids the boy. Guillermo was totally caught off guard, wondering why his body was suddenly frozen in place. It looked like his whole squad was caught in a total trance. One girl on the team realized it was the legendary Ruby Staff, a crazy rare A-rank weapon with a 1 in a million drop rate that only one person owns. It's either the witch, Garabosa, or Yashmika. She snatched the sword from the guy and sarcastically promised she'd definitely give it back. Guillermo yells that the sword is his, but the girl realizes it actually belongs to the boy and walks right up to him. The guy was totally fuming after they shoved him, snatched his sword, and barked at him to get moving. The guy walked off with one last warning for Henry, leaving the kid totally stunned that his bully finally got put in his place. He was totally stunned when he saw her. She was a bit older than him and looked like a total queen, but also super low-key. Out of nowhere, she looks right at the guy and flashes him a huge grin. She handed the sword right back to the boy. She suddenly yanked her sword back, and the boy just stared at her in total shock. She just smirked and said that since she helped out, that sword was officially hers now. Honore was totally caught off guard and asked if he was for real, but the boy just looked down at the ground with a super sad face. She walked right up to him and told him he should just ask for it back. She waited for him to speak first, so she could tell him she was just there to give his sword back. Honore felt super awkward, but she quickly told the girl to give that sword back. Orya flipped the sword around and pointed it right back at him. Riefeld dropped to his knees and thanked the girl for saving him, explaining that without her help, he never could have bought the medicine his sister needs. She straight up told him that, in her eyes, everyone is just looking out for themselves. Turns out there are actually other people just like Henri. She turns back around, flashes him another smile, and asks if he's down to sign up for self-defense classes. He was doing all of this just to keep his sister safe. Back at home, he started really thinking about how he always believed that as long as he made enough money, his sister would be safe. But it turns out that still wasn't enough. It doesn't even matter how many trophies he's got under his belt. They can just snatch everything away from him, just like what happened today. now that he's finally figured out how to walk straight through walls. I can't just give his stuff away, and let's be real, he's way too weak to keep his sister safe. He's got to get stronger by mastering his dodging, especially since he's already moving up to engine level E in the spiral dungeon. Clear this for the first time and you'll score the Book of Truths. Desperate screams for help were echoing from the bottom of the dungeon. The fighter couldn't believe his eyes since he'd just spent a fortune on all that high-level gear. He screamed at the top of his lungs that he wasn't ready to die, and his voice just kept bouncing off the freezing dungeon walls. This E-rank spiral dungeon is crawling with dark orcs, and you'll need to be at least level 25 to survive it. Henry's the only one who knows the truth, which is that he has to take the same hit that just smashed him into the wall to make his dodge work. The kid doesn't need a sword anymore. He needs a shield for the fight, so he asks the shopkeeper to hook him up. The guy led the kid into a room that was totally packed with all kinds of shields. He checked the shields and saw one cost 3,000, his whole food budget for a month, while the other was 5,000, the exact price of his medicine. He never thought he'd be dropping this much cash, but now he can actually afford all this expensive stuff. The guy walks up to ask where he's headed, and Henri just grins, telling him he's taking on the spiral dungeon. The seller's face instantly twisted in shock when he saw the engine was only an E rank. He walks over to check on the kid, and man, it's totally wild that someone this young is already in such a high position. The guy asked if he was finally getting the book and all the loot for clearing the dungeon. Because honestly, it's the one big dream that every single adventurer is chasing. Henrioli scowled, and the seller could tell he still hadn't made up his mind. He thought it over and decided to drop 3,000 on that shield, telling them it was a deal. That kind of messy move isn't his style at all, so he just snapped the shield right in half. He handed the kid a tiny golem shield and told him its power level was a crazy 10,000. He warns them that even a basic orc is a total nightmare, mentioning how he's seen people toss their weapons and get wrecked because they had zero defense. He also mentioned that this shield is super cheap, but it's actually top-tier quality. The price tag was 120,000, but the guy just smiled and gave him a massive discount, leaving Unri totally stunned since that much cash could literally last him a lifetime. This is basically unheard of, but the kid actually made it all the way to the spiral dungeon. He crept back into the boss's office, being super careful this time. He watched as the massive orc split the guy's head open and tossed him aside like trash, looking like a walking pile of bones with a huge, drooling mouth that was straight-up nightmare fuel. He gripped the mace in his massive paw and got ready to go on the attack. Out of nowhere, he whipped out his weapon and let out a massive roar, making it clear he was going to wreck anyone who dared to get in his way. You're going to need to be at least level 25 if you want any chance of taking down this orc. Henri's got this nervous grin on his face because he finally worked up the guts to buy that tiny golem shield. He's totally out of his league as a level 1 weakling, and even with the best gear, there's no way he's taking down that boss. He's only got one thing on his mind now because his whole life is riding on that shield. York suddenly lunged forward and attacked, trying to end the whole fight in one shot. Henry ducked behind his shield, but the hit was way too strong and he just couldn't hold on. The shield totally held up, and the kid realized the seller was actually for real. These dark orcs are unleashing some seriously insane attacks. Henry popped up right in front of him and used his power to dodge. He can actually score the reward without even having to kill her. He soared right over the wall and was totally shocked he made it while carrying that shield. He checked his shield for any cracks, but it was still perfect, without even a single scratch on it. Henry was shocked that even after that massive hit, the shield didn't budge or show a single scratch. He started sprinting around the room, super hyped that his shield was still in one piece so he wouldn't have to keep wasting money on new ones. He grabbed his shield tight, flashed a big smile, and promised he was definitely going to win. Henry raises his shield again and says he's been his own best teammate for a long time now. He walks right up to the chest and tells his shield that he only made it this far because of its help. The chest swings open and boom, the real deal Book of Truth is right there. Orya told him straight up that if he wants to keep his sister safe, he's got to get way stronger. He reached out and smashed the use button on the screen that popped up. Since he can't level up, this is the only way he can figure out how his powers actually work. This is going to let you boost your high score by another 10 points. He's the only guy who can spam this book as many times as he wants. Yoon pulls off his dodge move again and zips straight through the wall. He just got his hands on the second Book of Truths. It actually works, and since he can walk through walls, he can grab all the loot he wants. Back at home, he grabbed the book again and showed his sister all the crazy magic it could do. His agility stat was sitting at a solid 10. He shows his sister his stats, totally hyped that he finally boosted his agility by a massive 10 points for the first time ever. He zoomed around the room, realizing he'd gotten way faster than before. He totally sped through washing his sister way faster than usual this time. He promises to use all these rewards to get way stronger just for his sister's sake. The kid sat on the floor scrubbing his shield, wondering how much faster he needed to get to finally become a total beast. Henri's the only one who knows how to get past that wall, and if he keeps grabbing those books of truth, his agility is going to be totally off the charts. While he was hanging out with Guillermo's crew, he finally got a look at his grades. Right then, this guy's agility was sitting at a crazy 243. Once he remembered that massive number, the kid finally figured everything out all on his own. If Guillermo's agility is sitting at 243, then Henry is definitely about to hit a whole new level. He went back to the organ and swore he'd become more skilled than anyone else out there. He was dead set on hitting over 1,000 agility points, so he raised his shield and charged straight ahead without stopping. He pulled off another slick dodge, sending the kid crashing right into the wall. He just kept boosting his agility by 10 points over and over again. 210. Wait, the user input is, he has already used 6 books of truth, so his agility was 210. Final choice. He's all ready. That wasn't enough for Henri, so he decided to pop his evasion skill again. He used that magic book 8 more times just to get super fast and agile. They burned through 14 books of truth to hit 290 agility, but Anari knew she still needed to be way faster. His stats were skyrocketing with every book he read, and he wasn't stopping now because this was just the start of his big plan to keep his sister safe. He hit the floor with a huge smile, totally glowing with joy. He tracked down 10 books just to jump his skill up by 100 points instantly. It feels absolutely amazing too. His agility is already sitting at 390, and seeing those stats climb by the end of the day just feels so satisfying. He was totally hooked and could honestly watch them forever. He stayed glued to that spot until the sun finally came up. Every single day, he grabbed every book he could find that was packed with the actual truth. Arna was totally gassed, but he refused to stop and used his skill to dodge yet again. He swore he'd get stronger and read that book 1,000,000 times to make it happen. He was totally obsessed with hunting down books, and honestly, he loved every second of it. He's having the absolute time of his life right now. He kept grabbing books over and over until it was basically a total habit. You've read 100 books, but this is the one story you'll never tell a soul about. But even though he's standing right there, it's like nobody even notices him. He's actually glad it's a secret, because if random people found that hidden wall path, they'd just keep coming back to grab all the gifts forever. As long as his little sister is safe, he literally doesn't care about anything else. She's the one who actually showed him how to do this. The second he remembered the girl, he spotted her and shouted out at the top of his lungs. Orya smirked, because to her, that low-level prisoner and the sorceress Garabosa weren't even in the same league. She knew exactly who he was, but he still looked like such a mess that she started worrying she'd made a huge mistake. She walked right up to him and asked if he'd actually leveled up, but Henry just felt super awkward and couldn't find the words to explain his new powers. She used a special skill to peek at his stats, but he started feeling around his body and told her to knock it off. Orya was totally hooked when she saw his agility was a massive 1,150, and it completely blew her mind. Henry flashed a grin and told her he was going to get way stronger just for her. He thanked her, and Orya gave him a super sweet smile in return. She spun around and headed off to scrub the dungeon, leaving the boy all by himself. Henry was totally hyped for literally any job that had to do with dungeons. He gave a quick wave back to the girl who just wished him luck. Orius gave a warm smile and promised they'd see each other again, but he never actually made it out of the dungeon that day, since Orya never actually made it back out of that dungeon. The guy behind the counter crossed his arms and told her the girl probably headed straight for that A-class dungeon called Tramp. He's saying the rescue squad is in a massive mess right now. Henry was totally losing it and yelled that an entire week had already passed, but the guy just shrugged and said that's normal since this is a level 50 dungeon, leaving Henry. The seller warns them the whole place is rigged with traps, so this mission is going to be a total nightmare, and all they can do is wait. The kid finally snapped, screamed at the seller, and just bolted out of there. The guy was totally blown away and wondered if the kid could actually pull it off, but right then, a customer walked up to him. The guy stared the kid down and asked if he was really just a level 1 inmate. The shopkeeper was totally lost at first, but then he just grinned and reminded him that this guy literally lives at his forge. He explained that the kid is stuck on the very first floor, which is exactly why everyone calls him a first-level prisoner. This guy totally lost it and snapped the sword they were literally just about to buy. He realizes that if all this is actually true, Henri is making a break for the Tromsø dungeon. A fight is already going down inside as everyone screams that a golem appeared, which is crazy because you need to be at least level 50 for this dungeon. The guys realized they'd have to bail if things stayed this bad, while the kid scrambled to catch up from behind. The seller was totally convinced Henri was immortal, since he was the first person to ever step foot in a dungeon that's meant for level 50 players. Henri just charges straight in and weaves through every single enemy like it's nothing. The knights were totally clueless about what just zoomed past them, but for real, those books boosted his agility all the way to 1,150. He's got zero time to waste on these monsters, so he just books it. Then he finally makes it to Orya, and this place is totally different from the others. Getting through this dungeon is way tougher now. This place is packed with D-rank moving traps that warp you to random spots, and this guy just got snatched up and thrown by one out of nowhere. Henri looked around, totally lost, and that's exactly why he was taking so long to go save Orya. He tossed the map aside, realizing that if he kept falling for these traps, he wouldn't even be around to use it. Henri just keeps charging back to her, no matter how many times he gets warped away. He's not stopping for anything, because he worked on his speed for one reason, to keep his friends safe. Because now, he's finally got what it takes to pull it off. Out of nowhere, the guy crashes down right in front of Orya while she's just sitting there curled up and dreaming about snacks. She heard a massive rumble and looked up to see what just went down. Henri looked up and gave her a huge grin, just super relieved he actually managed to find her. Orya picked herself up, walked straight over to the boy, and asked him what he was even doing there. He flashed a massive grin and spoke to the boy who came to rescue her, leaving the girl totally stunned. Orya just flashed a smile and said her research was only a bit behind, so they didn't need to rush over and save her yet. But then she suddenly heard a boy crying. She cleared her throat and apologized because seeing him so sad and honest really hit her deep, making it impossible to push him away. But then, out of nowhere, the boy remembered something. He snagged a bun for Orya since her stomach had been growling like crazy lately. She smiled at how much he cared and told him the food was totally perfect. Stuck deep in the dungeon, the two of them decided to spark a fire. Orya explained they were on a mission to find every single trap, which is why her partner was so lost. But when she asked him about the number 82, he was totally clueless. She dropped her voice and whispered that this was the number of travelers who had vanished, and it was growing every single day. Level 50 is supposed to be enough to pass, but 27 level 60s, 46 level 50s, and 9 level 70s pros have all vanished lately. Doesn't that seem super sketchy? She told them that some seriously creepy rumors about this prison were starting to spread everywhere. There's a secret room where the boss is hiding, and if you fall into one of the moving traps, it'll toss you straight inside. She didn't feel bad for her at all, just straight up telling her that this guy was a goner. Suddenly, everything went dead silent between the two of them. Maria tilted her head and told them she'd finally made it to the room. Take out the boss and report back that it's over. Out of nowhere, Henri grabbed her hand and told her they were leaving together. He swore to protect everyone he cares about, so he tells the girl he'll help her take down the boss. He made up his mind to jump in and help her take down that monster. Orya was totally shocked by that, but the boy didn't stop and told her straight up that he was there to rescue her. She shut her eyes, flashed a big smile, and turned right toward him. She leaned in and warned Azir to stop meddling in other people's business, or he'd never be able to handle being her partner. She asked if he was seriously going to fight in those rags, but hey, looking cool isn't exactly the priority right now. Orya couldn't believe this guy actually made it past all those monsters, and Henri was already gearing up to explain himself. Out of nowhere, two guys nearby started shouting. One found another trap, and the other started complaining about his job until his buddy told him to quit whining. Gilbert Stein is a level 82 beast who's demanding double the cash, and he's got Kills and level 75 Anderton backing him up. Hills clocked the guy as a weak level 1 prisoner and demanded to know what he was even doing there, while the girl next to him looked totally blown away. She snapped, "Is that dude seriously only level 1? And even though Henri wasn't totally sure, he said, "Yeah, making Orya let out a massive sigh. Out of nowhere, she gets right in his face and lets out another huge sigh. She pulled him into a hug and told him not to pull away, leaving Henry totally shocked and without a clue what was going on. She told him there was no way she could just leave him behind while he was still stuck at level 1, so he swears to keep her safe, but he has no clue she already recognizes him as the guy she ran into on the street. He's dying to show everyone that he's not that same guy anymore. Out of nowhere, he screamed that a golem was heading straight for them. Orya got totally serious and told him he really needs to stop stressing over the small stuff. The whole squad was one-shotting those ghouls, and Onara was totally blown away by their insane power. The kid's eyes went totally wide when he saw his very first level. Orion took one look at his new squad and told them to stay sharp, because there were still plenty of traps waiting to wreck them. Kill asked if there were way too many goblins, but Gilbert just shouted that he'd make sure they all got a massive bonus for the extra work. While they're walking down the hallway, the girl suddenly warns them that there's just one trap left before they hit the boss. He's a totally solid shield bearer, and you can really feel this short hero's confidence rubbing off on everyone around him. Orya couldn't believe a level 1 newbie could be this hyped up. She grabbed his shield and warned him that he couldn't move a single inch right now. She told the guy to back off and warned him that she was ready to crank her magic up by another 50%. She stepped forward and kept moving right along with her squad. They charged forward, aiming straight for the giant's feet. Kill saw they were dealing with a massive giant this time, and Gilbert started complaining again that they seriously needed a raise for this kind of work. She squints for a second, summons our monster, and looks totally shocked. Wait, is that seriously all she's got? Hills confidently told the team they had to see what this beast could actually do before trying to win. Then he immediately unleashed a powerful axe move. He threw a punch strong enough to shatter boulders, but the guy didn't even flinch and acted like it was nothing. He shook off the hit and warned the squad that hitting this monster is totally useless because it doesn't even care. He told her to try using magic, and she fired back that she'd use it to drown him. The monster was way faster as it lunged forward, sending super sharp stones flying everywhere. Orya was totally frozen and didn't know what to do, but Gilbert moved way faster, throwing up his massive shield to save her from the falling rocks. One of those stones hits her super hard, sending the staff flying right out of her hands. She whipped around and let out a huge cry of pure heartbreak, totally lost as her staff lay there on the ground. She walks right up to him and orders him to stay put, making me wonder if he's actually going to listen. As the girl tried to push through that storm of flying rocks, the boy's eyes suddenly lit up with a genius plan. He told her to just hang back while he sprinted ahead to grab her stick and bring it back. He bolted away but came right back to hand the girl her staff. Orya was totally shocked because she didn't even see the kid bolt, and even with her crazy high level, she couldn't keep up with his speed at all. She was shocked by how much this guy could take, but Henri screamed at her to move, so she grabbed her staff and got ready to strike. She slashed with her water blade and poked a ton of holes straight through the monster. Once the golem was smashed into tiny bits, everyone figured he was gone for good. But Kills just bragged that their witch was the absolute best. She hesitated, wondering if lifting her staff was even worth dying for, but Henry sprinted over with a massive smile, hyping up her crazy attack, while Orya totally thought he was just bringing her the staff. She didn't see the whole thing, but he still put his life on the line just to keep her safe. She finally realized how far he'd come, and that he wasn't even trying to show off, so she bowed her head and whispered a thank you, but he didn't hear her, and just asked again. She was already itching to do it all over again. Out of nowhere, a massive magic circle just pops up right next to them. Orya warned them that the entire floor was actually one giant deadly trap. She told them she felt this crazy energy and realized the guy standing there wasn't just for show. He was actually the key to triggering the whole trap. She warned them to stay sharp because they were about to be handed over to the real boss. The whole squad ended up stumbling into a tiny, cramped cave. Gallant noticed it was way too quiet. Kills felt like something was seriously wrong, and Orya was just staring straight into the pitch-black darkness. She figured it out fast and warned the squad that someone was waiting for them up ahead. She slowly started calling out everything she saw, from the massive shield, sword, katana, mace, and axe, to the monster's crazy stats like 567 agility, 19 with defense at 3,925, attack at 4,101, and a set of lethal new weapons. Normal adventurers were already way out of their league. Get hyped, because today we're diving into automatic night level. Orya went quiet for a second before dropping a total bombshell. That boss is actually level 100. These tough guys were totally stunned because they were way outclassed and had never seen anyone with crazy powers like this before. Henri grit his teeth as he faced the secret room's boss, a monster so high level that even Guillermo looked like a total weakling in comparison. Gilbert thought this was total nonsense, since he couldn't wrap his head around a boss being so broken that nobody could beat him. Orya told them that this was the exact reason she showed up in the first place. She started buffing her team with magic to give them the strength to crush that monster. She stands tall and just keeps blasting the same spell over and over. She looked the boss right in the eyes and asked if he even knew why she was so mad, especially since he just showed up out of nowhere and wiped out her whole squad. The monster is about to wreck all their plans and swears the boss is going to pay with his life. Orya raised her hand and spoke up for Shmeek, the ruler of Garibos, swearing that he'll take down the monster himself to keep the city safe, even if it costs him everything. Henry got totally fired up by those words, pushing his power to the absolute limit without realizing the crazy thing that was about to happen next. Gilbert was totally down with her plan, and said he didn't mind being fought for one bit. But Kills sadly explained that even though they were new partners, he still had to step. Gilbert usually just hangs back with his shield while telling Orya to prep a massive spell, but she snaps and asks if he seriously thinks she's weak. The monster whispered that his little welcome party was a total success. He swung his sword once and sliced straight through the shield and the guy behind it. Gilbert's eyes popped when his defense got shredded instantly, like it wasn't even there in the first place. Not even magic could help them out this time. A scream echoes nearby as someone calls out for the guy, but he's already dead after the monster stabbed him with almost every weapon it had. Kills lets out a massive roar and lunges straight at the boss, fueled by pure rage as he fights to get payback for his home and his fallen friend. He realized he was wide open after the attack, but the hit was so perfect he didn't even know if his own hand had moved. He also realized this monster literally has 0 blind spots. Orya tried to jump in, but Kills stopped her and told her to focus on her magic, so she shut her eyes and started charging up to save her friend. He knows her magic is the only way to win, so he's just dodging the monster's hits to buy a few more seconds. Henry stared in pure fear, but then it clicked. He actually had the strength to take this monster on. He stepped closer and asked her point blank if she could really fire off a massive spell that fast, or if she was actually trying to stop it. Gilbert was still alive, and he knew he had to keep on fighting. Out of nowhere, a kid sprints past and chucks a medicine vial at him, catching the guy totally off guard that a level 1 prisoner would just dive straight into the boss's arms while he Kills gasping for air and totally beat up, and even though he's desperate to run, his body is finally giving out on him. He's got no way to dodge with attacks flying in from every side, and it looks like he's finally done for. The guys suddenly smack the monster right on the head, and now it's totally locked onto them. Hills was totally blown away by the prisoner and shouted, asking what he was even doing on the first level. He said the kid was totally gonna die and doubled down on it to show he wasn't kidding. The monster can't even touch him now that his speed is off the charts, making his reflexes lightning fast and his vision super sharp. He sees every monster attack coming in slow motion and dodges them like it's nothing. And just like that, everything finally clicked for him. Once your agility stat hits 1000, something totally wild starts to happen. Kills stared at the scene with his eyes wide open, totally unable to believe what was happening right in front of him. Gilbert also had some words for this dude. He just had to accept the truth. A level 1 kid was the one who actually saved them. Orya walked right up, thanked the guy, and told him to back off. Henri didn't dare talk back and immediately scrambled to get out of her way. She finally knew the way, and that was all she needed to keep travelers safe from the scariest stuff out there. She's been training like crazy to level up her magic, and with her ruby staff and gear pushing her to the limit, she's finally at max power. She's even stacked with buff spells right now, focusing every bit of that. She tells the monster it's about to feel her real power and summons a massive fireball. The wizard swings his staff and the whole cave explodes with red fire, trapping the monster in a giant ball of energy that totally wipes it out. The fire slowly swallows the monster whole, turning its body into straight-up ash as its weapon slips right out of its hands. Orya actually pulled it off and crushed that level 100 boss, which was seriously insane. A massive fireball slams into him, and his weapons and armor start melting right off his body. He was checking out her awesome magic again when suddenly, someone yanked him right toward them. The guys suddenly rushed over to the kid, gave him a massive hug, and started patting his head while telling him he totally blew their minds. Orya popped up right next to them and told everyone that Henri was the only reason they actually beat that monster. The kid picked himself up and said everyone was overhyping him, but the team knew the truth. He was the hero who just saved their lives. Henri quickly apologized for not knowing her story, but she just smiled and said it was all good before thanking the Schmeek family boy one more time. She thanked him and told him that every single traveler in Garibos basically owes him their life. Gilbert says they can finally tell the guild that Trump won't get trapped in that secret room with the unbeatable boss anymore. Kills flashed a grin and admitted he was totally shocked by the kid's skills, calling him a straight-up hero, and Honoré could only thank him for the massive compliment. He was actually terrified that even if the Book of Truth boosted his speed, it still wouldn't be enough to save him. This dude just keeps getting stronger, even though he's literally saying there's no way he can win. Henri was totally confused and had to ask who she meant, so Orya reminded him that while he used to be just a weak kid at some guy's feet, he's definitely leveled up since then. Henri realized it was all true, and now he wasn't scared of anything anymore. Gilmer slammed his drink onto the bar and started shouting curses, making the girl next to him ask if he was finally calling it quits. The guy hits the girl and snaps at her to shut up and stay far away from him. He's losing it, screaming that some random kid totally embarrassed him even though he's part of the elite Great Three, but right then, an employee pops into the room to talk to the boss. The boy said sorry for losing the little kid, and the man's face just completely fell. Helmer suddenly grabs his friend by the throat, lifts him high into the air, and starts threatening to choke him out. The kid tried to make excuses about how the guy is always solo and hard to find, but the man didn't care and told him to figure it out himself. He flashed a wicked grin, reminding Henri about his sick sister and bragging that he was the one who told him about her in the first place. Helmut swore he'd rip the guy to shreds no matter what, and the man hit the ground coughing his lungs out after almost being strangled. The guy told the kid he'd regret not dying in a ditch, and even after kicking him out, he still had no clue why his boss was so obsessed with this random boy. Helmut cracked a smile and suddenly burst into a wild laugh, totally terrifying the subordinate standing right next to him. This guy wanted to see pure terror in the kid's eyes when he forced him to kill, so he used his sister to make it happen. He's about to go have some real fun with his sister Henri. Suddenly, the girl starts thrashing around in bed, gasping for air and covered in sweat like she's in a total trance, and she begs her brother to run away. A crazy laugh rings through the cave as Kills lunges for the speedster, but the guy zips away so fast that Kills is left totally stunned he couldn't catch him. Henri actually pulled it off and kept Orya safe, finally saving the person who means the most to him. He's rushing home as fast as he can because he can't wait to tell his little sister how they totally wrecked that boss. Out of nowhere, this creepy dark energy starts leaking from the monster's helmet, leaving the boy totally confused as he turns back to his squad. The kid asked if they thought things were getting a little weird, while Gilbert stared at the helmet and asked what he was talking about. He was totally shocked that even after taking down the boss, he didn't get any XP or a single reward. Out of nowhere, dark energy exploded from the helmet like a massive wave, and the whole cave went pitch black. Out of nowhere, the guy sprints right up to her and yells for her to watch out. He used his crazy speed to shove Oreo out of the way, and just as she was getting confused, a massive crack ripped open right behind them. The floors in every room started splitting wide open, and Kills and Gilbert got caught in the massive cracks and took some serious damage. Two of them got absolutely wrecked and were in a really dangerous spot. Orya screamed their names and tried to bolt, but Henri grabbed her and yelled that she'd just get herself hurt too. He used his crazy speed to save Orya, but she noticed something weird and asked what was going on. Through all that crazy fog and chaos, she spotted a shadow and warned the boy right away. She realized the shadow had broken loose from the armor and was now attacking her from every single direction. Orya was trying to figure out what was going on, and the only thing she could think about was her second form. Once a boss gets weak, it can transform and unlock insane new powers, turning a fight you almost won into a total nightmare. Orya raised her staff high and started firing off spells to try and hit that shadow. She swung with everything she had, but the shadow dodged every single attack, so she finally told the boy there was no way she could hit him. That shadow lunged right at Orya and Henri, but the boy was way too fast and dodged it just in time. She told him that if he's not fast enough to hit the shadow, he should just aim for where it's gonna land. Henri hung his head and finally admitted his attack power was only a measly 10. He's dodging every attack while yelling at himself, trying to figure out how to save the girl and win without actually hurting the guy. Orya stood in front of the kid and told him Henri was the only reason they were still breathing, but he couldn't keep running away forever. Henri knows the deal. You need some serious power saved up if you're gonna dodge in a spot like that. With nowhere left to dodge, he suddenly came up with a genius plan. He whipped around to Orya and told her he had a plan, and she was totally hooked, asking him exactly what he was cooking up. Henri got dead serious and asked if she was ready to put her life in his hands. Those huge doors in the boss room are a total giveaway that Henri can actually walk right through the wall. That reward zone stays locked tight until you finally take down the boss. Everything is totally different here, so even if he tries to walk through a wall, he might just smack into it instead of finding a room, and he's not even sure if he can bring Orya with him. He broke down the whole plan for her and called it a wild adventure, even though the odds of them failing were way higher than actually winning. He asks Orya if she can really trust her life to someone who stays stuck at level 1. Hearing the truth about life totally blew her mind, and she actually stumbled back in shock. This massive dark shadow rises up again, looking totally terrifying as it towers over everything. Henri snatched Ori and spammed his dodge skill over and over to save her. Henri was down to just 35% of his life, and the girl was seriously starting to freak out about him. She knows that if he hadn't stepped in, she'd be straight up dead right now. And it wasn't just this time. He's always showing up right when she needs him most. Orya finally realized that levels didn't mean a thing here, and right then, the guy whipped around to face the girl. She gave him a warm smile and told him she totally believes in him and what he can do. She says she trusts him so much that she's literally ready to put her life in his hands. Hearing those kind words totally fired Henri up and gave him the confidence boost he needed. Orya asks if he's actually got a plan, so the guy steps right in front of him with his tiny shield and tells the girls to max out his defense, which totally blows her mind. She finally realized what was happening and asked if he was seriously planning to solo the entire monster wave, and he just gave her a super confident, yeah. Orya was totally blown away, remembering that even a level 1 pro like Gilberto couldn't survive this monster's insane power. She screamed that he was a goner, but I yelled back that he just had to make it. Avar screamed that she'd take the hit since she's way tougher, so the boy ducked behind her while the witch jumped in front to block everything with a massive shield. Henri spoke up out of nowhere, totally catching the girl off guard. He looked down at the two guys who died to save him, knowing he'd never see them again as he remembered everything they did for him. Orya was totally crushed, promising she'd never forget them and that she'd definitely build them some incredible coffins back at the estate. Henri screamed that a monster was closing in, and even though the witch was tearing up, she totally locked in and gripped her weapon tight. Out of nowhere, the shadow slammed into the ground with everything it had. A huge blast sent a wave of dust crashing straight toward the couple hiding behind their magic barrier. Cracks were literally starting to spread all over the shield. That massive hit sent a wave of dust and dirt crashing into the water shield until it finally started to shatter under the pressure. The shield finally gave out, and they both went flying toward the wall so fast it looked like they were going to smash right into it. He whipped around and triggered his evasion skill to dodge. The second Henri reaches the wall, everything suddenly goes pitch black, and even with his eyes wide open, he can't see a single thing. Behind the wall where the boss fight went down, there's absolutely nothing, and the guy is totally losing it because they're standing in a giant void. It's pitch black, and he's got no clue where they even are. But they totally fail big time. That terrifying monster was left all alone in the cave with nothing but Arai's sad little hat. The two of them just kept falling into a total darkness that never seemed to end. Henri suddenly realized they'd somehow stumbled right out of the dungeon. The outside looks nothing like what's actually going on inside. Basically, everyone says this dungeon is like a whole other dimension that just goes on forever. The guy starts shouting apologies to her for getting them stuck outside the dungeon, but then a thin trail of blood suddenly appears out of nowhere. It was Orya, and blood was straight up pouring out of her eyes and nose. Unaritri lunged forward to grab the girl before she fell, but he just couldn't reach her in time. The boy and girl are plummeting deeper into the unknown, and it's nothing but total darkness below them. Out of nowhere, they slammed right into something solid with a massive thud. He realizes it's just dirt, but he feels something weird underneath, and after checking the ground, he's totally sure something is hidden there. He spots the girl and shouts her name, and once he realizes she's actually still breathing, he wastes no time opening up the vessel. He gently tips the bottle to her lips to help her drink, making it way easier for her to swallow her food. Hag sends up a silent prayer, feeling beyond relieved that Orya is safe and still alive. He looks up and says they've probably fallen straight to the very bottom of the dungeon's reverse side. He's surrounded by nothing but pitch-black emptiness, and he's got absolutely no clue what to do next. He pulls her in close and squints hard, spotting a mysterious glow ahead that he's desperate to reach. Up ahead, he spots a tiny light shining just like a star in the dark. He's got to find an exit fast to get Ellie her medicine before time runs out, and he's finally closing in on his big goal. Suddenly, we're at a bar where this guy slams his glass down and yells for another drink, and the bartender's totally down to serve him. Guermo's sitting in a bar, totally fuming and clenching his fists because they still haven't found his home, and he just wants this whole mess over with right now. He rants about how his partners are totally worthless and he's surrounded by losers, but then he goes to flush the toilet and the handle doesn't even work. This guy is totally losing it, kicking the bathroom door and screaming at whoever's inside to hurry up because they're making one of the legendary Big Three wait. Suddenly, a guy walks out of the bathroom and is totally shocked that Guermo joined the Big Three, thinking he must have been through a lot. But then he looks at the stranger with pure terror and Waldemar walks right up to him with a big smile and shakes his hand, since it's been ages since they last saw each other. Waldemar claps him on the shoulder and says he knew he'd find him at the bar, leaving the guy totally shocked that a big shot like him is actually looking for him. Waldemar says Henri sent him and brings up how he borrowed that item when he left town, which makes Guermo start to totally freak out. He figured he'd just check in to see how he was holding up. Henri realizes he's still got some fight left in him, and even though he feels like something is falling, he just keeps carrying the girl on his back. As he gets closer, he sees it's actually a geometric shape with circular patterns, and he's totally blown away by how cool it looks. The kid is completely shocked because he's never seen anything like this, and he's actually pretty mad that he doesn't have the skills to analyze what's happening. He thinks he can check the status bar, figuring if he just grabs the thing, he'll know exactly what it is without needing any fancy scans, so Henry reaches out his hand. Suddenly, a warning flashes in front of him, saying that taking in this raw data might cause some massive glitches and asking if he's really sure he wants to risk it. He asks what the deal is, but once he reads the warning, he gets a bad vibe and decides to just leave it alone. He finally hits the very back of the dungeon, but it's just a total dead end of pitch-black darkness, so he turns around and starts thinking about what to do next. Henri has no clue how this is all going to end, but if there's even a tiny chance he can get back home, he's going for it and slams that yes button. Out of nowhere, he's standing right by a cave under the open sky, and Henry's totally blown away when he realizes this is the entrance to the pipe dungeon. He's got no clue how he even got back to the surface, but he's holding a blinking crystal while his system pings him about some crazy new data he just picked up. Henri figures the device on his arm is the real problem, especially since he remembers the system flagging some massive errors. He checks himself for any injuries, pops open his status screen to scan his stats, and then counts every single item in his bag to see what he's got left. He realizes nothing has actually changed and wonders why it all ended so easily. Our MC is totally stoked that he actually made it across the dungeon, and even though he has zero clue how he did it, he's just hyped he finished while it's still early. He's finally got enough time to get that medicine to his sister. He jumps right up and starts sprinting ahead. Waldemar asks Guermo if Henri is actually doing okay. The guy's a little annoyed, but he still says yes. Waldemar is super hyped about this and just gives a chill, humble smile. He reminds the guy of the exact words he said when he first handed it over. Our main guy finally makes it back, and Waldemar officially welcomes him to the squad. And then he just wipes it out with total style. Waldemar is totally ticked off about getting kicked out, while Guermo yells his head off, admitting he was just scared since he thought our main guy wouldn't even survive a single day. The second guy shuts him down with a massive insult, claiming he's so brain-dead that words can't even describe it. Waldemar brags that all he had to do was bait him into a dungeon full of crazy strong monsters, and he thinks the whole plan is a total piece of cake. Yerma says he's done this plenty of times, but he's clearly getting nervous with the guy staring him down. Every time the kid dodged the question and stayed alive, Voldemort was so blown away by his answers that he just kept asking the same thing over and over. His face suddenly goes dead serious as he jumps up and says they need to move, leaving the other guy totally confused while the sun sets and the moon starts to glow. As these two guys walk past the forest, Guillermo straight up asks Valdemar what he's really after. Out of nowhere, the guy whips out a massive sword and points it right at him, as Waldemar yells that he's useless now since he couldn't finish off Henry. The guy starts freaking out and begs him to stop, but he's done playing games and says he's going to end him with his own bare hands. Then Waldemar asks if the guy explains that it's actually super tough to handle. You've got to dodge at the exact second they strike, because if you hesitate for even a moment, it's not going to work. Usually, you've only got a 10% chance of winning, and he's wondering who'd be crazy enough to risk getting totally wrecked like that. He remembers how the MC always dodges every attack and says that skill is honestly insane if you know how to use it. This guy catches on instantly to where the talk is going, and Henri knows exactly how to use that to his advantage. Valdemar says that if they ever go head-to-head, Guillermo doesn't stand a chance against our hero. Out of nowhere, the guy starts laughing like a total maniac, claiming Henry and Voldemort are just pulling a massive prank on him. He grabs the guy's sword and just snaps the blade in half with his bare hands. Valdemar plays it cool, but he reminds everyone that he still can't stand being the butt of the joke. He's ready to take out anyone who dares to laugh at him, even if it costs him everything. The guy screams that he's going to be next if this keeps up, but Waldemar just smirks and looks down on him like he's nothing. Guillermo screams that a guy with only 10 attack power can't be the strongest and won't even leave a scratch, claiming someone that weak is just destined for a painful end. Most Garibos get wrecked by Valdemar instantly, but Guillermo is actually built different. So Valdemar is thinking about giving him the job while some other dude just won't stop laughing. Waldemar quietly lets Visan know that Henri is still alive, and he just smirks, thinking about all the chaos that's coming next. Back at the house, the sun is already up and Orya is wide awake, staring out her window as the morning light floods in. The butler walks in totally relieved she's finally awake, and the girl is just happy thinking someone actually rescued her. He nods and says yes, explaining that the gun shop owner brought her to the guild after some random adventurer carried her there on his back. Her cheeks turn bright red as it finally hits her. Henri actually just saved her. We jump over to the weapon shop, where the owner gives Orya a big welcome and asks why she's all dressed up. She tells him a big reward is coming later, but for now, she wants to thank him herself, and he just laughs it off like it's no big deal. Orya gets all shy again and asks if Henri's been around, because she really wants to say thanks. The guy stops to think for a second. Then out of nowhere, he just tells her no. He tells her he's got zero time for this, but she's totally confused and asks him to explain again. Now our guy is taking on this massive beast all by himself, dodging every single attack like a total pro. He's back in Trump's dungeon and is already throwing hands with a massive crystal golem. You're supposed to be at least level 62 to take on this beast, but our guy just stares down the massive monster and says that everything has to get stronger eventually. He figures out that once the monster starts charging up, he's only got a second or two to make his move. He's only got 2 seconds to leap back, and he pulls it off perfectly, letting his insane speed do all the work for him. He can even shrug off that insane crystal gale. Even though he's a total klutz, he's still spamming long-range moves like crazy, but our MC weaves through every single shot and realizes that if he just backs away, the guy can only fire in one straight line. He knows that even if he gets close, he's still gonna strike her, so he's gearing up for another round and refusing to give up hope. The golem unleashes a massive wave of stone, and suddenly, giant crystal spikes burst out of the ground everywhere. Anna sees the mess hitting the floor and knows she's driving the adventurers absolutely crazy. If Henry can just slide right under Golem's feet, he'll be totally safe. He figures if he just grabs onto the giant's leg during the attack, he won't get hit at all. The giant tries to shake it off, but our hero dodges and goes right for the counterattack. Here's the secret to getting past that crystal gallium wall as our hero sticks a perfect landing. Suddenly, he spots a tiny box on an altar right in front of him, glowing under a bright light. It's flickering softly with little flames dancing all around it. He slowly walks up to the enro realizes this is his prize for clearing the Wanderer's dungeon, and after checking the guild's first clear rewards, he knows this is exactly what he needs to finally level up. He was forced to run for his life against that automatic Knight Defender, and he only survived because Orya luckily showed up to save him. Our hero starts thinking back to his old squad. Gilbert and Kills definitely didn't have it as easy as he did. He shuts his eyes tight, feeling the total bitterness of it. Henry heads up the stairs, worried this nightmare might happen again, because he can't stand the thought of failing to keep his sister safe. He needs it right this second, so he yanks the chest open and a massive flash of light explodes, filling the entire room. He pulls out a tiny book and figures it's probably some kind of new combat skill. Our MC is holding a book of knowledge, which is actually a passive skill that gives them a better shot at landing those massive critical hits. Henri gulps and stares at the system window, asking if he wants to use the item. Then he stops overthinking and smashes that yes button. Out of nowhere, this crazy force slams into him and his head starts killing him, making him cringe in total agony. A system screen flashes in front of him, and now his chance to land a massive physical crit just climbed by 3%. The system told him his crit boost was already used up, so now he has to aim for the weak spot to land a massive hit. Basically, a weak spot is just a place with less defense based on 3 main things, and he points out a basic dungeon where the monsters had specific targets right on their bodies. Up until now, even hitting a weak spot with his knife didn't do a single thing to him. He's got no idea how much more power he needs to hit that hard, so with only 10 strength points, he reaches for his dagger. The kid pulls out his dagger with a look of pure determination, and Onari knows that since the first step is done, he's finally ready to slay the monster and get that level up. Our guy gives a super shy smile as his face turns bright red, and his heart is absolutely racing from the nerves. He charges straight for the fortress, dying to see if this puny prisoner he caught is actually worth anything. He's also wondering what this tiny boost to his physical crit rate is actually going to do. He's convinced that if something small exists, there has to be something average too. This guy thinks being tiny is basically the new normal before things get serious. After grabbing every single book of... He's also wondering what'll go down if he returns, just like that time with the Book of Knowledge. He cracks a smile, knowing he's got to try this out, and immediately sprints away from the monster. Henry's already scored a massive pile of books, and he's looking at his loot like it's the coolest thing ever. He's super hyped to see what happens next, so he tests if a kid can actually be a medium and smashes that yes button again. Henry shouts that he knew it all along, and with the skill finally active, he's got a 7% higher chance to deal some serious heavy damage. Henri's dying to see what this massive power-up actually looks like, so he hits that yes button one more time. He's shouting with pure hype as the system pings again, confirming his skill is active and giving him a massive 50% higher chance to deal extra damage with every physical hit. He wipes his face and realizes he's finally ready to get some real answers. He picks up a huge book with a sword right on the cover. Onari starts to wonder if Another system window pops up as his skill activates, boosting his chance to deal 99% more physical damage, and he's totally living for the thrill. Henry's blown away by his own progress, and realizes he hasn't even hit his peak yet. He only grabbed 3 books because he thought the ceiling was his limit, but now he knows he figures 99% is basically a guaranteed win since every hit will be a critical, but he's way too curious about what happens after the emergency to stop now, so he grabs another book. A bit later, he brings 10 more pieces and sits right in front of the system window with a huge grin. Henry's dying to see if using the Book of Knowledge while he's already buffed can actually break the limit and push his crit rate past 100% all the way to 120%. He grins and says this is way faster for boosting his strike power than just doing it a little at a time. So he hits the button again, and a girl suddenly pops up right in front of. The system says the best skill right now is a massive boost to his physical crit rate, while all the other powers are still being worked on. Our guy stares at the system screen in total shock, thinking there's no way this is actually real. You better double-check your gear before you step foot inside that dungeon. He checks his gear and sees he's still got that golem shield, his food and water, a healing potion, a map, and his knife. Everything is right where it should be. He puts the weapon back and says he'll grab it later, but now he's got to figure out what happened next. So he thinks back to the moment that system screen totally shocked him. That massive crit rate boost is totally gone, and now he's wondering how much longer this whole system is even gonna last. He looks over at his sleeping sister and admits he just wanted to see if he could level up, showing how far greed will actually push him. He realizes he's getting super greedy lately, but he knows that if he can actually level up, he's gonna be way more powerful. Maybe he'll finally save enough cash to buy his sister's cure, or he might find it as a rare drop in a brutal dungeon, or a reward for clearing one for the first time. He gives his sister a soft head pat and tells her that the stronger he gets, the closer she is to finally being cured. He's dreaming of seeing her smile again as soon as possible so they can finally look back at the past with a grin. Back before Ellerit gave up on even getting out of bed, he remembers her always greeting him with a huge smile, but then she suddenly goes totally quiet. Our main guy looks like a total wreck, all covered in dirt and wounds, so Henri just drops the medicine on the nightstand and crashes into bed. His sister says goodnight, looking totally worried as he heads out. And that was exactly 1 year ago. After another brutal dungeon run, they were ready to give up on everything with nowhere left to turn, until Voldemort introduced him to a clumsy guy named Guillermo and promised he could finally pay for. He knew he was doing everything just for his sister and the cash, but trying to handle all these insane challenges by himself was getting way too hard. The next morning, our guy wakes up right next to his little sister as she starts shouting at him to finally get out of bed. Henry begs for some extra sleep since it's the weekend, but she's totally not having it and shuts him down while he refuses to budge from bed. Ilara's totally confident in her plan and heads out the door solo, and even when the MC wishes her luck, she turns back one last time to remind him she's doing this all on her own. She tells him he just doesn't get it and storms off for a walk alone. Our guy stays in bed for a bit, but then he suddenly bolts upright. See, his little sister has... The rule was simple, she never went anywhere alone, and the girl in the hat is totally hyped as she checks out the view. A massive, gorgeous ocean stretches out as far as they can see, and Ellerit is absolutely hyped to be there. She's having the best time ever at the beach, but the MC thinks it's super sus because his sister is usually a total bookworm, and then she touches the water and complains. Henri figures if his sister wants to be here, he might as well roll with it, and after she yells about how great the water feels, he decides to stop moping and actually have some. The siblings are having a blast splashing around at the beach, when suddenly our MC snatches a fish right out of the water using his insane 150 agility points. Henry leaps off a massive cliff right next to Ellerit, soaking her with a huge splash as they both laugh and have a total blast. She finally sees her brother again and tells him he hasn't smiled in ages, but he's just totally confused by what she means. Ellerit suddenly started crying her eyes out, telling them she was just so incredibly happy. She sprints over to her big brother and starts sobbing against him, leaving Henri completely caught off guard. She screams that if it's too dangerous for him, he shouldn't have risked his life, and she doesn't even want the medicine. She'd feel way better if she could just see him smile, but he just looks down at her with the saddest eyes. Onari finally realizes why she brought him to the ocean, and when she nods at his question, he thinks she's an amazing kid while his own memories start coming back to him. He looks up at the blinding sun and yells that he's got to try again, demanding one more jump. Her brother screams from the top of the cliff that her kindness has turned him into a total spoiled brat. Henri dives off the cliff toward his sister, shouting that she doesn't have to worry anymore because her big brother is finally here for her. He hits her with another spray and shouts that he'll do whatever it takes just to see her smile. Ellerit starts laughing so hard he's literally crying, just hyped that they're finally back together. He pats her head and thinks to himself that seeing her smile makes him feel like he could literally do anything. He gives his sister a warm smile and promises he's gonna give it his all just for her. Our hero says goodbye to Elrif since she's clearly not giving him any answers, and today he's heading right back into the dungeon. A moment later, the door the kid just walked through literally explodes into tiny pieces. Guillermo is slamming on the front door, shouting for Ellerit with a creepy grin and asking her to come out and play with them. The kid says he tracked him down while Henry was out, and Guillermo gives him major props for the awesome job. The rest of the crew stays dead silent while one guy reports that the house is totally empty and everything's been cleared out. Guillermo suddenly socks him right in the nose and asks if he's actually an idiot. The guy just grins and says they have everything they need right here, including the thing he treasures most. Guillermo is looking everywhere for her, and when this guy asks his sister what the boss is planning, she says he just wants to make a total fool out of Henry. She finally realizes that he actually wants her to see him cry. The guy smirks and tells her he's been waiting forever to meet her, looking totally smug while noticing just how cute she is. He kicks the bed and yells for her to wake up, but even the cat she's holding doesn't move because she's stuck in a coma. Guillermo yanks her up by the hair and asks if she wants to have some fun, But when Elra stays silent, his smile vanishes instantly. This guy is brutally hitting a girl in the face and screaming for her to wake up. He slams it down, making his crew jump in shock, and Guillermo is totally losing it because his whole plan is blowing up in his face. Guillermo kicks her in a total rage, yelling for her to scream, but he's getting even madder that she's passed out and isn't reacting at all. The woman leans in to check the girl's pulse and realizes she's in a coma, only staying alive because of all these meds. Guillermo can tell this is a total snooze fest. He yanks her hair again, looking super annoyed that she isn't even screaming or crying, and he honestly doesn't get why they need her, or why she's even still alive. Guillermo is trying to figure out what to do with her when a hilarious idea hits him, and a creepy, stone-cold smirk spreads across his face. The guy says he's got no use for her and tells her to just go to sleep, tossing her back onto the bed. Guillermo flashes a nasty smirk as he orders his squad to follow him, and the girl has zero clue what he's actually planning. Our hero's whole house is getting swallowed by massive flames. Everyone is just standing there watching, totally helpless to stop it. The roar of the fire is the only thing you can hear in the quiet. Guillermo just laughs like a maniac while watching the building burn right in front of him. The whole squad is hyped after seeing their boss in action, and while the girl asks if that's even possible, the boy is left totally speechless. Only one girl is brave enough to walk up to the guy, screaming that he's acting like a total jerk and has completely lost his mind, while he just stares back, totally confused. This girl starts screaming that his sister should just burn to a crisp. Out of nowhere, Guillermo flashes a super creepy smirk and laughs about how the whole thing is actually hilarious. This guy tells Henri he's taking everything, the house, the cash, and even his family, just to watch him suffer. Suddenly, there's a noise from the side that sounds exactly like a bag of cash and medicine hitting the floor. Guillermo turns back to say what's up. The guy apologizes for being late, and the whole crew is standing right in front of a building that's going up in flames. Our guy stares in total shock as his house goes up in flames with the bad guys standing right there. Our main guy's house is literally going up in flames. Guillermo stares the guy down with a totally insane smile on his face. His eyes snap open and he's totally caught off guard. He whispers, asking where his sister is and if she's actually inside. Guillermo points at the burnt-down house and tells him she's totally roasted inside. The moment they pass him again, he heads straight for the burned-down house. The kid asks the boss if it's time to take Henri out, but Guillermo signals him to stop, saying it's way too early for that. He drops to his knees in front of the burnt-down house and yells for his sister, his whole body shaking like crazy. Our hero gets sent flying backward. His face is a total mess of pure rage and complete hopelessness. He's crying out of pure anger while Guillermo just stands there, totally loving the sound of his screams. This guy demands he scream and cry, wanting to see him totally break down and show what he's really hiding inside. Guillermo asks Henri if he feels guilty, but then tells him he's totally wrong because his sister didn't die just because he was weak. Guillermo screams that she died because he was too weak, totally losing it as he lets out a massive roar of rage. He suddenly saw flashes of his little sister, her reading a book, making flower crowns, and the two of them just hanging out by the ocean on their day off. She's always been the most important person in his life, and he literally can't get her out of his head. He stops crying and just sits there quietly on his knees while Guillermo stands behind him, laughing like he's having the best time ever. He says the feeling is absolutely insane and asks the guy what he's even supposed to say. The guy demands to see everything he's got, but Henri is struggling just to stand back up. Guillermo is dying to see him suffer, but the moment his face twists in pure terror, our main guy finally turns back around. But he looks totally locked in, and even as a single tear falls, his eyes show he's ready to absolutely crush his opponent. The guy is totally shocked looking at his face and asks what's wrong, but the team leader is definitely not a fan of how it looks. He screams at him, asking if he even realizes that in Guillermo's eyes he's a total nobody. Voldemort stands on the balcony, waiting for the chaos to start since he's sure Onari can just dodge everything and escape easily. Once he realizes he totally chickened out and ran away, he'll have to deal with that shame by himself. But he's actually been busy with something way cooler for a long time. Turns out destiny is actually on his side, because a glowing system cat just spawned right in front of him. It's not just about fate, it's about all that hard work finally paying off, and our hero is totally shocked when a status screen pops up, leaving everyone else completely stunned too. Suddenly, A girl pops up on every screen to announce a brand new skill that's never been seen before. He's totally stunned when the system tells him he already used the Book of Knowledge, and now his skill is getting an instant upgrade right on the spot. His new skill, Wild Enthusiasm, jacks up his crit rate while a bright light wraps around him from head to toe. She's totally sure he'll love it while he's shocked by how good she is, and now that he's finally got a shot, he can either blow it or, if this is really about our guy, he's finally got a shot at becoming a top-tier adventurer. It's the one thing he's always dreamed of. You can see it. Henry grabs his sword and gets ready to fight. This dude doesn't care at all about the insane aura coming off the main character's knife. His girlfriend from the team is totally blown away because she's never seen anything like this, and the crazy part is, he has no clue how insane his talent really is. He heads back to his boss and says he's not a fan, but he's actually grinning because he doesn't get why everyone was so terrified of Henri. He says he's only got 10 level 1 attacks, and since they won't even leave a scratch, he's not even sweating this skill. That crazy speed he's so proud of won't mean a thing once his whole world gets destroyed. Guillermo screams that he's gonna end Henri, bragging that he's never seen someone glare at him so hard, especially since everyone else who tried to stop his climb to the big three ended up on their knees. The guy's totally fed up because no matter how many times he tried to take him out, the dude never admitted he needed him, so Guillermo pulls a gun and says it's all ending today. The leader shouts that he's gonna end him with this thing, screaming that his blood is totally boiling with rage. This guy is holding the battle axe of despair with 2,400 power, and it hits 2.5 times harder if the enemy is a lower level. The guy orders the boys to stay put, and threatens to kill anyone who messes up, making Guillermo realize he hasn't felt this kind of intense pressure in a long time. The two rivals are staring each other down, but our hero is totally ignoring everything the guy says. The guy asks if he's gonna attack, but then laughs it off as a dumb question since he's harmless, right before he decides to lead with his fastest strike. Guillermo strikes in a flash, and the guy is totally convinced our hero can't dodge this one. Suddenly, the glow on his knife just vanishes, and the guy starts to get a little nervous. He suddenly realizes the guy has totally given up because he knows he can't win, and it puts a massive smirk on his face. The guy just takes out our hero right then and there, thinking that even though Henry had guts, his life is ending for no reason as he screams at the kid to just drop dead. His weapon hits the ground, but he doesn't have a single scratch on him. The guy is totally shocked his hit missed and thinks the dude dodged, but he didn't even flinch, and suddenly his subordinate yells out to him. The girl screams for him to look down, and he's totally shocked to realize the main character just chopped his hand off with an axe. Guillermo catches sight of the severed limb and lets out a massive scream of pure shock and pain. He lets out a terrifying scream that rings through the air, hunching over as he desperately presses his hand against the wound to stop the bleeding. The guy has no clue how or when he even sliced his own hand off. Guillermo is just standing there wondering if he should even get involved, and our main character is totally frozen, not even flee. The guy asks Henri if he's the killer, but you scream that there's no way since he only has 10 attacks. Then the dude suddenly drops dead and asks if that's really what this is all about. Henry holds up a lethal blade, and the boy starts sobbing, explaining that this weapon lets him feel the exact same agony Ellerit went through, leaving the man totally shocked. Guillermo is watching everything go down in total shock, while she stares in pure terror as her boss clutches his mangled arm. The guy next to him points out the boss has a crazy high defense that's rare even for top adventurers, and while he totally agrees it's super strong, even Guillermo has no clue how. Guillermo repeats the main character's words and tells him it's all just a total joke. The girl on his squad starts scanning the area to track down the enemies. She screams that everyone is a total idiot, insisting there's no way Henri could have chopped off his own hand without being caught, and she's dead certain his friend is hiding nearby. Her friend stops her and reveals it was actually Henri, the fastest guy in the whole company, and he saw the entire thing go down. Just as the attack was about to land, Henri suddenly leaped back, sliced his own arm off, and spun around. She's totally shocked it's already over, but he just brags that he finished in a flash because he's way faster than her. Nobody can stop his move, and Guillermo yells that this is exactly what he's been waiting for. Suddenly, the guys see him start to glow as his wounds close up, but he doesn't even flinch, and Guillermo realizes his assistant is the one backing him up. She yells that this won't last long, but it'll stop the bleeding for now, and the guy just stares at her in total shock. But then his shock turns into pure rage as he lunges forward and hits the girl right in the face with everything he's got. Her brother rushes over to help and asks the boss what his deal is, but the boss just says he told his crew to stay out of it. Guillermo screams that he thought he was losing, then he pins her to the wall with his foot and starts landing brutal hits all over again. He asks the girl if she even knows who he is, but the boy doesn't even flinch as Guillermo's crew rushes over to help her. The big boss is straight up bragging that there's no way he's losing to our hero. The guy tells him he's about to find out exactly what that difference really means. You can really see the massive gap in their ranks when he activates his dreadnought skill, shattering the ground beneath him and making his defense totally insane. They're being crushed by a massive force of 4,503, but they can actually tank the hit, so he yells for the MC to charge while he secretly plans out 10 strikes at once. He doesn't care how fast he has to move because hitting first is his only shot at winning, and the fight is already popping off. But out of nowhere, he just chops the dude's left arm clean off. He's completely wide open. His axe hand drops to his side, and he stares at his old subordinate with pure terror in his eyes. Le Mans is screaming his head off in pure rage and pain. He got his guard up, but he's totally confused about how he still got hit. Guillermo's just standing there wondering. Guillermo realizes he just couldn't pull off that deadly sword move again. The kid tells him that all his plans are totally useless because his power lets him ignore any defense, and he's never going to forgive him for what he did. He turns to his crew and asks why they're just standing there, demanding they help him take down the guy he totally embarrassed before. The assistants are totally lost and panicking, while the guy screams at them to hurry up and finish the kid off. But his whole squad is actually terrified of him, so they all freeze and stare at Henri because he looks straight up terrifying. They finally realize this guy can shred through any armor like it's thin paper without them even feeling the hit. And all three of them know that fighting him now is basically a suicide mission. The guy is screaming for them to listen and begging for help, but even the girl who tried to save him before just shuts her eyes and looks away. Guillermo realizes they're totally helpless and starts booking it away from the guy. Henry asks him straight up where he's at right now. He catches up to the guy and lands a massive hit. Then Henri catches him off guard and slams him right in the back. He unleashes the death blade and slices that guy straight down the middle. Then he wraps up the fight by slamming him with a bunch of lightning strikes. The bad guy gets slammed to the ground and is just lying there in a pool of his own blood. His squad hangs their heads in sadness, finally realizing their leader just lost the fight. The girl is totally worn out, but she still calls out Guillermo's name. Henry looks down at the guy he just crushed, thinking it's totally wild that one of the top 3 fighters in Garibos just got wrecked by a basic level 1 prisoner. His crew warned Guillermo to pick up the pace because Henri was coming straight for the boss. She told Henry that if this is what he wants, she's ready to finally pay for everything she's done. She explained that Guillermo usually gets away with whatever he wants while everyone just cheers him on, but this time he seriously went too far. Henry suddenly chucked his sword to the ground, leaving the boys completely shocked. Guillermo groans on the floor while the guy sits right next to him, winding up his fist for another hit. He smashes the guy right in the head and deals 10 points of damage. He couldn't forget the look on that guy's face when he found out he was the only one who refused to kneel. Unri swore that no matter how much they tried to shame him, he took every hit without ever giving up, but finally, he just couldn't hold it in and burst into tears. He pushed through all that struggle only because Ellerit was right there by his side. Even while getting absolutely wrecked by that guy, he kept going because he knew Ellerit was waiting for him back home. The only thing that kept him going through all that was her smile. He's gonna do absolutely anything just to keep a smile on her face. He made a promise to her, and now he literally can't even imagine his life without her. Guillermo looked over at Henry, who was totally breaking down in tears. The guy sat down and said he was ready to take the heat, leaving the girl totally shocked as she asked if they really expected her to just ditch them and run. The guy shouts that everything is Guillermo's fault, but the girl snaps back that they're just as guilty because they didn't even try to stop him. He asks her how dying alone is super depressing, so she stayed with him, but then she noticed the guy was actually starting to move. The guy let out a massive scream and started acting totally weird. He just straight up sank his teeth into Henry's shoulder. The whole crew was shocked the boss was still standing, but he just told them this wasn't even a fight anymore. This is definitely his real fighting instinct kicking in. Henry was totally stuck and had no clue what to do since he couldn't even try to dodge this time. Out of nowhere, Guillermo blurts out that if he's forced to die, he's definitely not doing it alone. Guillermo plans to drag Henry down with him by triggering his massive self-destruct skill. Out of nowhere, the blade slams right through Guillermo's head. Everyone's jaws hit the floor as Guillermo whipped around to face the attacker. Unread was totally lost, but then a tentacle suddenly popped out and he had zero clue what he was even looking at. Out of nowhere, he spots a hand. Out of nowhere, a face they totally recognized showed up. This right here was the one and only Ellerit. She looked him right in the face and called him by his name. A ghost suddenly popped out of the shadows, and the girl swore she saw it too. There she was, standing right in front of them, and they couldn't believe she actually survived her house burning to the ground. The guy straight up asked her who she even was. The girl says hi to everyone and tells them her name is something. She didn't even have a name, so she just started calling herself someone. Our hero told her to stop playing games and straight up asked who she was and why she was in that body. She told him straight up that she was super thankful for everything. He pointed out a massive detail that literally everyone else had missed. Wait, is someone actually using this girl's face as a disguise? Way back in a super weird kingdom far away, all this data just started popping up, but it was nothing but pure content. All this info actually showed up in a dream. If they finally managed to get outside, what would they even do first? They were busy picking which city to hit next and figuring out the best way to wipe out the entire human race. They didn't even get names or real bodies before they were just tossed out like total trash. They stayed totally hidden while they kept leaking the truth and refused to back down, just waiting for the day everyone would finally pay for what they did. They dreamed of the day they'd finally tear through the world like a massive storm. Word is she's actually just another piece of that same mystery data that hasn't even loaded yet. Our hero was totally losing his mind because all the secrets he'd found in that other world were somehow trapped inside his sister's body. The kid yelled that she was his sister and begged them to give her body back. She shut it down immediately, saying the whole thing was just way too hard. She was having a seriously hard time just dealing with her own body. It was all hers now, and the hero was already begging to get his gear back. He demanded to know what she was actually going to do with his sister's body. She says her whole purpose in life is just to bring bad luck to everyone she meets. He was in total shock seeing his sister transform into a straight-up monster. This monster pops out of nowhere, and since no single squad can take it down alone, it's a total world-ending threat that needs every team working together to survive. One of the knights just blasted a massive fireball. Someone said it was a total waste of time because she's just way too powerful. She said they only needed one more person to make this a real fight. Someone said making monsters should be a blast, but the girl says it's actually super easy since anyone with a special talent can do it. So she tells everyone to just repeat after her. First, you gotta get the body ready, because the higher the traveler's level, the more beastly that monster is gonna be. She told them to just imagine they were molding a piece of clay. His hands were back where they belonged, and that wound on his forehead healed up in a total flash. He was straight up ordered to devour her. The monster just straight up swallowed half of the girl in one massive gulp. One of the adventurers finally snapped and lunged at the girl who told him to eat everyone. She said she felt bad for just calling him a total monster. The crowd started bolting in every direction as someone shouted that the woman was actually his mom. She told them they had to take this seriously and give it a name that sounds like a mother's love. The girl saw the monster was done with its meal, realizing it just wiped out a whole squad of high-level pros in the blink of an eye. He snacked on some high-level adventurers and actually started to grow. The girl gave the command, and that massive, shapeless giant lunged forward to attack. The kid realized right then that the monster was about to wreck the whole city. Up until now, he could take down any boss, no matter how huge, just by dodging every single attack. He's totally tapped out of mana and out of potions after that insane fight with the monster. He's never actually beaten his rival before, but there's no way he's letting this monster get away. She was losing her mind because he dared to disagree, while the guy was just standing there completely clueless about what was even happening. Someone screamed for her to stay back, yelling that they were the ones in charge of the body now. The girl shouted at him that they had to get out of there right now. Ellerit tells the hero to bolt while she holds off the giant, since he's way too weak to fight back right now. He just tells them straight up that there's no way for him to escape. She warns them that the monster is going totally wild, and she won't be able to hold it back for much longer. Our guy starts screaming her name at the top of his lungs. She asks what he's up to and tells him her name. She says she took over everything the second that girl got smacked in the head. The kid was totally shocked and asked if this girl was actually his sister. She says one of them bugs her on the street and the other won't stop at home, so she just calls them a loud family. She told him to listen up because she'd been waiting forever on the other side for that body, and she finally grabbed it and broke out. Suddenly, a voice called out to that massive, shapeless giant. She's totally over this guy and tells him he's got to take him down first. But instead, the monster turns and goes straight for the girl. She had no clue why her body was just frozen in place. Right at the last second, the shapeless giant told her he was done taking orders and would do whatever he wanted, so she better just stay out of his way. She just stepped outside, but it looked like literally nothing had changed. Once again, nobody wanted her around, and they treated her like total garbage even though she had no clue what she did to deserve it. She was the main villain and she showed up just to make everyone's lives a total nightmare. Word is she's got the power to literally tear the whole world down to nothing. Our guy reached out and snatched her up. He immediately asked her if she was doing all right. She was feeling super guilty and had no idea who she was even supposed to blame. The monster straight up told her he hates her guts and wants her dead just so he can finally be free. She says everyone hates her guts just because she's a raid boss. Our guy looked her right in the eyes and swore he'd keep her safe no matter what. He swore he'd protect her if the monster attacked, but she just snapped back that he was no different from all the rest. She's not trying to save herself. She's actually protecting her sister who's trapped inside. Someone called him a total liar and said they absolutely hated people like him. The guy's calling himself a trash brother because he couldn't even keep his sister safe. He admitted she was right about him wanting to protect her, but he still hates her guts for stealing his sister's body. She's the only reason he finally got to see his sister again. Our boy made sure to give her a massive thanks. The girl told him straight up not to think she was going to save him now. He swore that this time he was finally going to keep her safe. Some guy called him a total idiot and told him he didn't stand a single chance at winning. She said her inner sister was totally screaming with excitement for her brother. The girl asked if they could just hang out and talk for a bit. He's totally out of juice after dumping all his mana and every single potion into that crazy monster fight. He desperately needed to restock his gear, and since Guillermo's squad just got wiped out, all their loot was just sitting there for the taking. At first, he just wanted to see if he could whip up a mana potion. The monster's right arm got super huge, and that's the arm it used to land all the big hits. If he stays sharp, his speed is so crazy that he doesn't even have to worry about getting hit. So now he can focus everything on his own attack. He said sorry and promised he'd actually use those potions. His mana is finally back to full power. He's only got enough juice to pull this off a few more times. Our guy unleashed his deadly blade skill, knowing it was his one and only shot to finally hit that monster. Doomblade is an insane skill that shreds right through any defense, and all you have to do is land one single hit to trigger it. How much mana he burns through all depends on how tough the enemy's defense is. His max mana is capped at 90, and since he's already chugged 4 potions to stay in the fight, he's dead meat if he doesn't win before his stash runs out. Even if he breaks through their defense, he's worried that Tiny Dagger is just too small to do any real damage. He had to take down that massive giant using nothing but a dagger. To make things worse, he was totally broke, and even though this was pure madness, he literally had no other choice. He had to wreck the monster from the inside, but he suddenly worried that if its defenses were too strong, he'd run out of mana mid-attack and get trapped in there with no... He kept spamming his deadly blade skill over and over again. Our hero kept pressing his advantage and didn't let up for a single second. Every hit drained 30 mana, and since this beast had a massive 3,000 defense, he had to find a weak spot fast. He's used up every last potion, so this is it, the final fight that decides everything. He's got to take this monster down right now, because he's never going to get another opening like this. Suddenly, the monster reaches out from underground and grabs his leg like it's nothing. Our main guy is definitely going to have a tough time taking this dude down. The kid was ready to put his dodging skills to the test. His arms were totally crushed. He couldn't even feel his left leg anymore, and he had to chug that potion right now. The kid looked everywhere, but his bag was just gone. That monster's wound just completely healed itself. Our hero drags himself back up, but he's down to his last 25 mana, so all he can do for now is dodge. She sliced right through it, and he was totally blown away by what he saw. She'd been watching everything from the inside and was totally freaked out about her brother. He told her he was sorry for making her watch all that craziness. She told him straight up that he didn't have to fight alone anymore. He's totally healed up and back at 100% power. The sister couldn't have a power like that since she's not an adventurer, but someone else actually pulled it off. Elworth reveals the girl is actually inside her, and after they talk it out, she agrees to let her borrow her body for a while. She said that once you're outside, that voice in your head starts sounding crazy loud. She was really upset, so they promised to keep their whole conversation a total secret. The girl warns that she won't be able to stay in this body for much longer. He asked her to tell him about herself, but Ellerit said she wasn't going to waste a single second of their time together. And just like that, now there are two monsters. The crazy part is that the girl was the one who actually slashed him. He told her to stay back, but she wasn't having it and said she was jumping into the fight too. Since walking was getting way too hard for her, she started helping out with chores instead. She was a total wreck every day, watching him put his life on the line in those dungeons just for her. Ellerit begged him to let her jump into the action and fight right by his side. Next thing she knows, she's stuck inside someone else's body. Our guy warned her straight up not to do anything stupid. She tells him that as long as he's right there, she's ready for whatever happens next. Now they just had to figure out how to actually take this monster down. Taxes have been around since the dawn of time, and honestly, we're still pretty much stuck in the past when it comes to paying them. He was dodging every single one of them like it was nothing. She straight up told him her dodging wasn't nearly as smooth as his. This beast could heal itself instantly, and suddenly the whole pack was back for more. No matter how hard they tried, these monsters were literally impossible to cut. No matter how hard he gets hit, he just heals up instantly. Ellerit told herself she couldn't quit now. This kid whipped out a sword that was straight up lethal. Monsters are swarming in like crazy, so the heroes had to huddle up and figure out a game plan. The kid triggered his evasion skill and zipped right out of the way. They couldn't beat the monsters, so they had to figure out a way to actually deal some damage. She told them she needed to go check something out real quick. He realized Ellerit was totally right. If slicing these monsters doesn't work, he needs to land a massive blow, but he definitely can't pull that off by himself. They dived straight into the burning house, and honestly, the fire might just take them out too. Our hero had no clue how to beat enemies that literally couldn't be hurt. He looked up just in time to see someone snatch the girl. That chopped-off hand grew back completely, right down to the very tip. It was super tiny, but the guy used a deadly knife to slice it up. Our hero shouted that he finally knew exactly how to take that monster down. He told her to listen up, saying he'd keep the guy busy while she spilled every detail she knew. He couldn't get it done with a knife, so he was banking on her, but she told him that if she stepped in, there'd just be way more of them. The guy told her not to sweat it, and to just trust that he's got this. He told her straight up that she could totally pull it off. He trusted her so much he was actually down to be the bait, knowing she'd totally pull it off. She was dead set on taking him on all by herself. Every time she sliced one down, even more just kept popping up. But their numbers were dropping way too fast. But the smaller they got, the faster they healed up. Alone, they were total weaklings, but there were just way too many of them to handle. He explained how he totally wrecked the monster, so his sister stepped in to help and told him she knew he'd show up for her. If something gets sliced, it only grows back as big as the piece that was cut off, but there's definitely a limit to how small it can get. Smaller monsters barely use up any mana, so slicing the tentacle off his sister only cost him 7 points, and he took out the baby monster with just 1. The angels just got a total recharge, refilling their strength and mana to the max. Now that they finally had a plan, they wanted to wrap things up fast so they could just spend the rest of their time together. They claimed that as long as they're together, nobody can touch them. Ellerit says they have to take out the monster right now before things get ugly, because there's no way they're letting it reach the city. He thought his sister was gone forever and he'd be miserable for the rest of his life, but now she's standing right next to him. He's totally on board and says it's time for them to end this nightmare together. And just like that, it's finally over after one seriously long day. Out of nowhere, a status screen just popped up right in front of him. And just like that, our guy finally hit level 2. His sister thought it was awesome, and he finally hit his very first level up. Up until now, he hadn't earned any XP because he couldn't even leave a scratch on the monster. In this world, your experience points are based on how much damage you actually do in. He's officially done with being a level 1 prisoner because he finally pulled it off. Our guy just hit another level after totally wrecking that massive beast. The bigger the level gap, the more XP you earn, so this level 1 dude just took down a monster spawned by the main raid boss. He just hit another level up. His level shot up like crazy, and he was totally stunned to see his attack power blowing up too. He used to be so down on himself for having a weak attack power of 10, but seeing that stat finally blow up made him feel like a total beast, as his level just kept skyrocketing. She tells him he doesn't have to hide his feelings just because she's there, because he literally just saved the whole city and her life, so he totally deserves to be hyped. He honestly had no clue how he ended up with a sister this amazing. He was totally losing it after hitting level 15 instantly, and the girl was super hyped for him. To level up your sword skills, you just have to slice through enough monsters. It was a skill for a specific weapon, and if you don't have it, using that weapon won't give you any edge at all. Since he was totally clueless with weapons, his attack power was a pathetic 10. He only carried that herb-gathering knife to look like he knew what he was doing. But starting today, the hero says being a pro with a weapon makes up for his weak hits, but the girl is just totally lost and has no clue what he's talking about. He told her that from here on out, he was going to get way stronger. When you first start out as an adventurer, you've got to master the basics like sword fighting, spear lunges, and even the skill of desperation, basically turning yourself into a total pro with any. To become an adventurer, you have to hit up the church for a special status, and he's stepping in for his dad to make sure his sister is taken care of. The only thing he was actually good at was seeing exactly what was about to happen. Now he's finally figured out how to use weapons. She told her brother she was super hyped for him, and he thanked her, saying he couldn't have done any of it without her. Ellerit says that now that he's finally safe, she's totally drained and has zero energy left. She said she was sorry, but she couldn't stay in this body anymore. Someone already owns this, but keeping it under control is a total nightmare that takes a ton of work. He tells her he's got a bag full of healing potions, and she just needs to say the word for him to help out. She told him it was too late to change anything, and just asked him to hold her for a little while longer. She told them not to freak out because she's staying in this body and just needs a quick nap. She asks if he remembers those bedtime stories from when she was a kid, and begs him for one last one as she drifts off to sleep. The hero told her all about this kid who fought like crazy just to save his sister. From that point on, she basically became his big sister. He said she was a high-class noble and he was just a total nobody. Ellerit whispers that she can't even keep her eyes open anymore, so the boy tells her it's finally time to sleep. He kept hoping he'd see his gun shop uncle and that girl again, and his sister promised him it was definitely going to happen. Our guy promised he'd definitely get them to meet. He swore to her that he'd find a way to bring her back, no matter what. She actually asked him to be nice to the other person. She had no clue why they were always trying to push their luck and see what they could get away with. Word was that if this went on any longer, her soul was going to be totally fried. She said she needed some shut-eye, so Elara thanked her and asked her to look after her brother, but then someone joked that she eats weaklings like him for breakfast. The girl begged her to keep it chill and not say anything mean. Our hero says he's officially on the hunt for a new place to live. He told them their first move is to head straight to the city. Then she stepped up and told him she was coming along too. He asked if she was totally sure since the city was packed, making her promise she wouldn't lose her cool. She asked if he could seriously promise not to wreck any toys with that massive pile sitting right in front of him. She said she'd just wait it out, and the boy realized her whole perspective was totally different from any normal person's. She was a total nightmare for the whole world, and her only mission was to wipe out every single human. He figures his sister must have told her something, which is why she's acting so chill about everything. He was left wondering if they'd ever actually be able to understand each other. She started complaining about her outfit, but the guy reminded her they were totally broke, even though she didn't care because her clothes felt super stiff and gross. She asked if she could strip down once they hit the city, but the hero told her that was definitely a bad idea. He figured she definitely spotted something weird way up in the sky. He said she's a total wild card. Our hero had seen this guy a bunch of times while hanging with his dad, so he was totally blown away to see him standing right there. The guy just laughed and asked what took so long with the report. Nobody ever expected that Beno's kid would be the one to actually take down Guillermo. Our hero asked what was going on, but he had no clue what to do next. He was freaking out about what this guy would do if he found out Guillermo was dead, because he definitely didn't. The man asked why he was so nervous, promising he wasn't going to blame him or tell a single soul. He told them that in this city, if a spot in the Big Three ever opens up, someone is definitely going to jump in and take it. With the spot finally wide open, he looks around and asks who's going to be the one to take it. The kid had no idea how he even knew that. The guy says our hero better land a spot in the top 3. The kid had no clue why this was happening to him. especially since there were way cooler guys in the city who would have been totally fuming if they were in his shoes. This guy told them he'd handle all the prep work himself. He said the info he got was actually a massive help. Our guy was totally clueless about what they meant and had no idea what he was even supposed to get ready for. Someone asks if the guy is finally gone. The boy wonders where she's been hiding, and she just says her gut told her it was time to stay out of sight. The guy said that seriously. Nobody ever thought Guillermo would actually lose this fight. Man, this city is finally starting to get wild. Orya spots the tea set on the table and says it smells amazing. Then she takes a sip and smiles because the flavor is honestly next level. The blacksmith scowls and tells the sorceress he doesn't even notice small stuff like that. He slams his fist on the table and yells that this is actually an armory, so the girl gives a nervous smile and apologizes, explaining she's just been coming here every single day for a long time. He takes a chill sip and says he totally gets why someone would want to just kick back and relax with some tea. He mentions how tough it must be to just wait around for someone when the forge is their only connection, then asks the sorceress if he's got the right idea or if he's just overthinking everything. He remembers her asking about Henri and wonders if she ever got the chance to thank the guy for saving her life. Orya says yeah, feeling like she totally missed her window and has no reason left to try, so Koval sighs and asks if she really thinks it's too late to change her fate. She just needs to find her courage and call Henri herself. The guy is totally rooting for her. The sorceress thinks it's a solid plan and thanks him for the advice. He pops open the note and asks the sorceress about the new dungeon inside, but Orya reveals she actually got the exact same letter from the guild. A crazy new dungeon called X just popped up in the capital, and it's already been ranked as the most dangerous one out there. Nobody has a clue what kind of monsters are lurking inside. Orya mentions a rumor that the first task's reward is the legendary philosopher's stone, and now the blacksmith is super curious about what this thing actually is. The sorceress explains they only found this dungeon because of some ancient books that said, "Everyone says the philosopher's stone is a legendary medicine that can cure literally any sickness. It can even bring people back from the dead," and hearing that totally blows his mind because he realizes this thing is worth a crazy amount of money. Orya isn't surprised at all that the philosopher's stone is hidden in such a crazy, difficult spot, but she's starting to feel like she isn't even strong enough to be there yet. An apology suddenly cuts them off, and the girl knows that voice the second she hears it. Meet Onari, a guy who can barely hold a sword without freaking out, leaving the girl totally stunned even though she's been hyped for this meeting for days. So she's hitting up the armory every single day, trying to get her power back and keep her cool just so she can thank the guy who saved her life. Orya grins and says it's just a crazy coincidence, but he actually planned every single bit of this on purpose. Henri knows it's her and calls out her name, but something feels totally wrong, like all his usual energy just vanished. She's totally locked onto Henri, and she's getting some seriously bad vibes. Koval has no clue what's actually happening and just scoops the kid up, totally relieved he's back after disappearing yesterday, but the girl can already tell something is seriously wrong with him. It was like he'd become a totally different person. Orya just watches everything go down while the blacksmith asks Henri if she's selling the sword, and once she says yeah, he heads straight for the counter. The sorceress finally works up the guts to speak to Henri, who just looks around totally chill like nothing even happened, waiting to see what she wants. The sorceress asks if something's up with the boy, and even though Henri hesitates, he swears everything is totally normal. But Orya isn't buying his story for a second. Henri's eyes are totally empty as tears pour down his face, but he doesn't even realize it, looking shocked when the sorceress asks why he's crying. He stares at the tears on his palm in total shock and asks out loud what's happening to him. Orya is even more shook, while Henri frantically wipes his eyes, totally hating himself for being weak when he promised he'd just act normal. He's homeless, totally broke, and has absolutely no clue how to handle LRF. Then Waldemar just pops up out of nowhere, and he wants this guy to take over his spot in the Big Three. Henri only met Guillermo once when Voldemort introduced him, and since it ended in a total disaster, he's really wondering if he should drag this guy into another mess. The blacksmith and the sorceress are totally freaking out, but Unre is about to ask them for some serious help, but there's just no way to tell them all the crazy stuff that went down. His sister just turned into the main enemy he actually has to face. Henri and Guillermo actually teamed up to figure this one out together. This dude is literally walking through walls with his tricks, but if he asks for help, he'd have to spill secrets that are way too dangerous to mention. Henri wipes his eyes and says he's sorry. He just flashes a grin and tells them everything is totally fine. The kid says he's just trying to sell the sword, and while the blacksmith agrees, he's definitely not buying the whole story. Orya isn't falling for it though, so she tells Henri to quit rushing and just stop. She tells him to drop the act because it's obvious he's hurting, and while she won't force him to talk, he's crazy if he thinks he can just pretend everything is normal. The sorceress tells Henri she's got a mission for him, and it's actually taking her out on a date today. The guy turns bright red and looks at her in total shock while she's busy chewing him out. Koval was actually a big fan of how that sounded. He pats Ree on the head and tells her that keeping everything bottled up inside is only going to lead to trouble. Sometimes you just gotta get out of there, because even though he's acting calm, his mind is a total storm of emotions right now. Orya grabs his hand and starts dragging him away, and even though Henri tries to resist, she just keeps pulling him along while the blacksmith grins and gives them a thumbs up. She grabs his hand and squeezes it as hard as she can. Orya looks totally chill, but inside, she's actually dying of embarrassment. She's cringing because she just grabbed his hand without even thinking. She really wishes she'd played. Onari's feeling pretty rough right now, so she's on a mission to find a way to cheer him up today. Suddenly, the weapon shop door flies open and smacks the witch right in the forehead because someone outside was done waiting for Gonri to show up. Orya rubs her head as she wakes up, wondering who could possibly be that insanely strong. She suddenly snaps, grabs Henri's hand, and drags him right out the door. Henri. The warrior grabs the kid's hand again, but Chan just keeps dragging him further away. This kid is in a total mess and has absolutely no clue what to do next. Olya's totally fuming and demands to know who the girl's boyfriend is, but Necton just snaps back and asks if she's got a death wish. She claims Henri is her personal toy, and she gets seriously mad whenever someone tries to take her stuff away. He knows he's in a total mess and has no clue how he's supposed to explain Necton to Orya. The witch is super annoyed by that gutsy talk and asks the girl who she thinks she is to be acting like that toward Henri. Someone just randomly asks him what Orya is to him, and she totally turns bright red. She tells them Henri is her partner in battle and the guy who literally saved her life. But honestly, the witch sees him way differently and gets so flustered that she can barely even get her words out. Out of nowhere, someone pulls Henri into a hug and tells Orya they've got all the proof they need, because they actually live together. That really set the sorceress off, and she's definitely got her own ideas about how this should go down. Orya turns away to wipe her bloody nose with a handkerchief, while Henri gets into a heated argument behind her, asking why he's being put in such a tough spot. The boy says sorry to the witch and tells her the girl with him is actually his little sister. Word is she's been out cold this whole time, but now she's finally awake, leaving Orya totally stunned as she asks about her little sister once more. Chan gets all dark and moody, warning the girl that if she says that word even one more time, he's totally gonna snap. She's about to end her for good. A random person in the crowd tells Orya to mind her own business since she has no clue what's happening, but Henri tells them to calm down because nobody needs to die, while the soars. He tries to apologize to Orya and says they need to find a place to stay fast, but Chang just won't stop yelling at him. Henri says he's sorry, but he can't hang out with her, and Orya is totally losing her cool. She totally wants to help him out, but the problem is, she knows basically zero about this dude. Someone pulls a mocking face, and the sorceress decides it's officially time for an all-out war. She flashes a grin and tells Henri they've got to check out at least one spot. A delicious pie is sitting on the table, and Orya says nothing beats a sweet treat when the clouds start rolling in. This is the absolute best spot in all of Garibaldi. And while Henri is totally ready to smash some apple pie, Chan has no clue how food works and asks what it even is. The kid asks if he can actually eat that, and the sorceress just grins and says duh, because they really need a mood boost right now. Someone gets super annoyed and asks where the meat is, but Orya just tells her she can skip the meal if she's gonna complain, then tells her husband to dig in. Henry thinks the pie is absolutely fire and tells Necton she's gotta try it, but she's not feeling it at all since she only eats meat. The kid tells his buddy to just sit down and thank the sorceress, so Chan finally gives in while Orya tells them to just take whatever they need. She calmly takes a sniff of the pie and bites in, but then something totally insane happens to her. Someone starts singing, and she's so shocked her eyes go wide and her jaw just drops. She grabs her head and starts jumping and rolling all over the floor because she's totally losing it over how amazing that food tastes. The girl starts screaming at Orya, calling her a total liar for using that pie just to get inside her head, but the sorceress just smirks and lets out a little laugh. Orya flashes a sinister smile and admits it's true. These costumes make you feel so hyped that you end up overeating, which basically turns you into a massive target for any enemy to hit. Nekoto-chan is totally fuming, but Henri tells her she'll be fine as long as she doesn't stuff her face. He tells her again to sit up and use her fork, but she gets suspicious and asks if something bad is about to happen to her. He's 100% sure that everything is going to turn out just fine. Henri thanks Orya for the killer meal, and the sorceress just gives him a big smile. She's asking what she's even supposed to do with this Chan, since the poor thing is still totally freaking out. She's collapsed on the ground, rambling over and over that the witch is coming for her brain, and Orya notices she's just stuck on repeat. Henri tells his friend to swing by so he can thank him the right way. Out of nowhere, Sean jumps up and stares at Orya, but he's weirdly covering his face with his hand for some reason. She's literally in tears because she never knew something this delicious even existed. Orya thinks she's actually pretty clever with the way she talks. But the witch isn't done yet, throwing her arms wide and shouting that the real fun is just getting started. She even brings out her favorite meat dishes, and the pot opens its mouth wide, looking totally hyped for the feast. She points at the whole roasted animal and asks if it's good, and Orya tells her it tastes amazing. Then Chan spots the fried sausages and asks the same thing, getting the exact same answer right away. Chan is strolling down the street, happily munching on his new snacks, while Henri feels bad for buying so much, but Orya just smiles and tells the kid not to even worry about. She reminds him that she still owes him big for saving her from the automatic knight, but he just tells her she doesn't owe him a thing. The sorceress gets all flustered and reminds him about their meeting, so they decide to go grab some food together first. Chan points out a shop and tells Orya there's some fire food inside, but Henri yells that they're done for the day, making the sorceress feel like she's just babysitting a toddler. This dude is just making excuses, acting like there's no way to handle Nekorchan or the real AFS. She calls their friend a total riot, but the guy just stands there giving her zero reaction. Chan asks for 3 servings, but the seller doesn't believe a single word this sorceress says. She's honestly so adorable when she gets annoyed and starts stomping her feet. But Henry's gonna have to make an impossible choice if he wants to save the LRF. He looks at Chan with a heavy heart and asks if there's any way to save someone when another personality steals their mind, leaving Orya totally shocked. Chan grabs her food and holds it up high with both hands like a flag, totally locked into this brand new experience. The witch takes one look at her and realizes it's definitely not the right time to grill the boy. It's way better to wait until he's ready to spill the beans himself, so Uriah plays dumb and says she's never heard of it, and Henri totally backs her up. Out of nowhere, the witch remembers something and hands the guy a note, telling him it's got all the details on a brand new dungeon that just popped up in the capital. Henry's focused on reading, but Orya drops a massive rumor. The prize for beating this game is a legit philosopher's stone. Word is, this thing is so powerful it can even bring people back from the dead. But hey, this is the prize you get for beating the absolute hardest dungeon in the game. The sorceress thinks this miracle might be the perfect fix for every single problem the boy is dealing with right now. Henry starts to speak, but the sorceress suddenly cuts him off to apologize, admitting she totally forgot this mission might actually be impossible, though Henry just tells her it's no big deal. Henri remembers the one rule for every problem. If things get tough, level up. If you're struggling, level up. And if you want something, you just gotta get stronger. If you push yourself hard enough, you can grab everything you've ever wanted. That's what it's really about. It's finally time to step up and become a legit adventurer. Orya looks at Henri in total shock, but she instantly turns bright red and gives him a big smile. Necton totally crashes the party, screaming at the sorceress who took everything from her, but she clearly has no clue how the pay the raid boss rule works. So our guy, he finally knows exactly what to do, and after someone Chan's wild stunts, Henri stops to thank Orya for having his back. First, he's gonna snatch the philosopher's stone and claim it's gonna make him way more powerful. The sorceress smirks and says she totally recognized old Henry. Orya grabs Henry's hand and drags him along, telling him he looks nothing like a real adventurer heading to Dungeon X. So that's why the witch is finally giving him her big goodbye gift today. Orya drags Henri to a shop for a quick makeover, And while he stares at his reflection in total confusion, she and the clerk are busy talking about how fire his new look is. That suit costs a massive 24,000 lats, but she pays for it without even blinking, leaving Henri totally shook that she'd dropped that much cash on him. Chan bolts out of the booth in a total panic, yelling to Orya that someone is trying to toss gross rags all over her. The witch leaned down to listen to the girl's sad story, and told her that it actually looked totally awesome on her. The price tag is even higher this time, but Orya pays it totally chill, making the guy feel super awkward that she's even buying clothes for Necton. But for the sorceress, this is just a chance to flex, and she brags that if you keep grinding in dungeons and getting stronger, you'll be swimming in gold. Unre is totally blown away by how much stronger the pro-adventurers are, and he's even holding hands with the sorceress as they walk together. Orya speaks up and asks what the heck happened to the boy's shield. Un just gives a nervous grin and says he accidentally broke the monster, which honestly just leaves everyone with way more questions. That's not going to work because the little golem's shield is insanely tough, so the sorceress is going to need some seriously high-level magic to even scratch it. She was dying to know what kind of crazy stuff this guy was actually going through. Oreo is getting more and more depressed, wondering how anyone could stay totally chill in a crazy situation like this. She puts her foot down and says they're getting a new shield right now, and Arnie has no choice but to go along with it. Right outside the weapon shop, the sorceress spots a guy in a business suit and wonders what he's even doing there. The guy walks right up and asks what happened, telling her he knew he'd find her in this exact spot. She used to hang out here every single day just to see Andre, but the witch is totally fed up and tells her to get to the point already. The kid hangs back, trying to guess what they're saying, while Orya looks super annoyed. She thanks the guy and says she totally gets it, while he just warns her not to be late. Out of nowhere, he drops into a bow and asks Henri to keep looking after Orya, making things so awkward that Henri tells him to just stand up already. He admits he actually owes that sorceress big time. Orya is still totally lost in her own head, clearly overthinking something private. He heads back to her side, and she finally snaps out of it, apologizing and telling him not to sweat it. Orya hits up her friend to go grab a shield, but the blacksmiths are seriously annoyed that they even showed up. While he checks out the shields, he pulls the sorceress aside and tells her he's super happy she cares about Henry so much. This place definitely isn't the best spot for a date, but Orya says she's totally fine with it. She's the one who wanted to come here anyway. And the guy finally admits that she's probably right about this being the spot. Meanwhile, our guy is stressing over his next move because he's totally done with that dinky golem shield and wants a massive upgrade. Arya pops back up, and when Anzuri sees a shield for 50,000 lira, he decides it's way too pricey and goes for a cheaper one instead. He's still fast enough to dodge if things go south, but right then, Necton suddenly calls out to him. She wants to see how tough that shield really is and tells him to grip it tight, totally catching him off guard. Chan just taps the shield with one finger and scoffs like it's a total joke. Her strike shatters the shield into a million pieces, and Henry barely manages to scramble back. The crowd is losing their minds, and even the blacksmith is stunned that this girl just smashed his shield like it was nothing. Entry screams at Neko-chan, demanding to know what she's doing, but she just snaps back and asks if he was actually going to use that piece of junk while Orya stays quiet and watches the drama unfold. The sorceress can tell something is definitely wrong here. She might not be a powerhouse, but she's a pro-adventurer who knows her stuff. There's no way a regular kid should. So you're probably wondering, who exactly is this girl? But seriously, what's even going on with Henri in this whole mess? I'm dying to know what kind of mess he's in, and even though Orya offers to pay for the damage to keep things low-key, the blacksmith is suddenly crying. He's sobbing and losing his mind because he can't believe his eyes. He built that shield with his own 2 hands. So how did a random kid just smash it to pieces? The guy cuts him off right there, telling him he doesn't want his money and doesn't owe him a single cent. The blacksmith admitted he's the one who smashed the shield, so letting him go now is going to be a huge lesson for him. The guy tells Necton to stop holding back and just wreck everything she can. She doesn't need to hear it twice, instantly turning every single shield into a pile of trash. But one shield is still catching someone's eye. She's calling out to the guy. She finally found the perfect pick, a tiny crystal turtle shield with a massive 160,000 defense. Henri's about to say sorry to Orya, but he remembers some solid advice and stops himself. He gets super hyped and tells her he's never going to forget what she did for him. He swears he's definitely hitting up Dungeon X no matter what. The sorceress admits she wanted to grab some new gear, but she's got other stuff to handle and needs to get moving fast. Orya says her final goodbye. Unre Waves is finally making a massive return. Orya looks back and tells the guy they should get stronger together. Honore turns a little red and totally agrees. He watches her walk away, and even though they've said goodbye like this a million times, he can tell they're finally getting way closer. He's left wondering what the heck that witch was actually talking about. Orya finally lets out a massive breath of relief. She's stoked she finally met Henri and wastes no time checking her status to see where she's at. As she picks out her gear, she's actually surprised by how good it feels to finally realize the truth. Having someone ready to scrap right beside you gives you a massive confidence boost, making you realize you aren't alone and that any challenge is way easier with backup. Now that's what you call real guts. These two finally came face to face right at the gate. Then we've got Eckhart, straight from the legendary Great Trinity. And right here is Gwiog, one of the three absolute beasts from the Great Trio. Georg asks Eckhart if he's the one who called the Big Three, but Eckhart says no, he thought Georg did it, even though Georg didn't do it either. Now they've only got one choice left. It turns out it was Guillermo, and they get right to the point, but neither of them likes how things are going. Eckhart asks a question he already knows the answer to, and Guillermo is, Georg wants to wrap this up fast and stay positive, but he warns that even though this meeting is urgent, that girl might still show up to mess things up, which is when Orya jumps in and asks if they're talking about her. She says the Schmick family is totally showing up since Garabos is right there with her. Georg reminds her that he's already told her this a bunch of times. Garibos is a city packed with adventurers, and the Great Trio are the ones who get to decide its whole future. In Garibosa, every adventurer joins either the Crimson Brigade, the Dinaro Guild, or the Nameless Clan, and the strongest fighter from each group leads the pack as part of the legendary Great Trio. Georg says the Great Three meeting is strictly for adventurers and their own business, and he thinks the nobles need to stop sticking their noses into the city's affairs. The sorceress asks what went down in Garibos under the Great Trio, and it's a total mess. Corruption is everywhere, slavery has started, everyone's forced to pay for protection, and thugs are constantly robbing innocent people. Orya asks if their motto is choosing the best, but Georg is totally stumped and has no idea what to say. Eckhart realizes that things are definitely not going according to plan. He says his clan, the Crimson Brigade, only cares about one thing from adventurers, raw strength, and if you've got it. So why not give Orya some respect, since she's a total beast of an adventurer who even earned the nickname Witch of Gabaros? Georg laughs and admits he totally didn't see that coming. He mocks the Dinero Guild for only protecting rich snobs, while Garrett calls out Eckhart for being a total suck-up to the landowner, but the guy just stays silent. George only respects people who are stronger than him, and he totally ignores all the trash talk from the weaklings. The sorceress just smirks and says, if that's how he feels, she's down to give him exactly what he wants. She tells Georg he's going to regret opening his mouth, but he just smirks and says he can't wait. Eckhart steps up and says they should take him down. Eckhart starts roasting Guillermo for being a country boy in the guild's fanciest restaurant, but Guillermo just shrugs it off, saying people always try way too hard to act like they're a big deal. The guy swings the door open and tells Guillermo they're late, but Eckhart just fixes his glasses and asks what he'll do if the restaurant's reputation is ruined, just because. But the person waiting for them just laughs and says these guys still don't have a clue. Garrick points out it's been forever since they last met, and Eckhart admits he never thought the guy who invited him would actually show his face in this city again. Waldemar sits right across from them and says he just wanted to spill the secrets to people who actually love this city. It's up to you guys to decide if he's a hero or a total nightmare, while a guy named Chan asks Henri what the game plan is. The kid says they need to find a place to stay first, but that's going to take a ton of cash. She asks if they can trade this stuff for meat or apple pie, and the hero tells her she's totally right. He says that's exactly why they're heading back to the dungeon, but Chan is totally over it, asking if he really wants her to struggle again since Henry literally just sold their sword for. She asks why he's switching swords when he already mastered the old one. Henry admits the sword is way too heavy for him to even swing, but his trusty traveler's blade has always had his back anyway. To this guy, that sword is literally just a way to pay the bills. I'm hitting the road today and heading straight for Garibos. He walked right into the fossil cave out of habit, totally forgetting that his shield was actually busted. With no other options, Henri whipped out his deadly sword and finished the boss in one hit. But because he stepped into the reward zone too fast, he's officially locked out of getting that. He's snatching the most important prize for himself and talking trash, asking if the big shot can even swing a stick at him. Man, I feel for the guy. He stays quiet, thinking she probably just sees a regular old stick. Beating the facile dungeon boss was a total nightmare that took every bit of strength he had. F-class is history now, and Henri is moving straight to D-class engines to rake in the big rewards while Chan just walks around grumbling in the background. He realizes he can't stand these guys because they remind him way too much of the other side. Henry says sorry and tells her to hang in there, promising her a massive meat feast once they find a place to live, when suddenly a loud shout nearby makes everyone's eyes light up. She starts whispering about what she really wants, and the guy asks her to say it one more time. Chan's face turned bright red as they admitted they were dying for some apple pie. Before Enrique can even get a word out, he completely loses his footing. Meet Necton. She's so hyped about the plan that she's already dragging the guy into the dungeon, telling him he should have just said that from the start. Suddenly, a desperate scream for help rings out from high above the rooftops. Henri is sprinting down the street when he suddenly spots a kid begging for help. The e-grab is snatching at everyone's clothes as they walk by, but they all just shrug him off like it's nothing. This crying kid says his brother never came back from the dungeon, and he's totally helpless because he's only level 1. But the other guy isn't having it at all, and winds up for a massive punch. Henri scoops the guy right up and asks if he's hurt, and as soon as he hears he's okay, the guy promises he's going to save his brother. The legendary Great Three finally stepped up to talk to Waldemar. Georg demands to know why he's even at the Big Three meeting, while Eckhart wonders where the heck Guillermo is. Waldemar tells them to just pretend he's the one standing there instead of Guillermo. Georg thinks about it and says that if he wants it, then that's exactly how it's going to be. Eckhart leans in and whispers something to Orya, who's sitting right in front of him. The sorceress is totally caught off guard, but she still calls Waldemar out for being the former leader of the Nameless Clan. She asks if this guy was in the legendary trio before Guillermo. Then Waldemar realizes she's the Lord's daughter and tells her it's awesome she actually showed up for the big meeting. He tells everyone to take a seat and says the Schmick family better pay attention, since he's the guy who called this whole meeting. Waldemar asks the group if they can guess why he called all these big shots together, and Card thinks it's because some massive changes are coming to Garibos. Waldemar stands up and grabs his sword, telling everyone there are 2 big things they need to settle right now. To kick things off, he asks the group if anyone actually knows what this weapon is. Orya knows that sword immediately because it's the exact same one the big boss in Trump's dungeon used. Everyone's jaws hit the floor when they see the weapon he's suggesting. Eckart's heard this enemy is so insane that they actually sealed the boss room after Lady Aurelia's report, and he's totally shocked, because even with all the risk-takers, Waldemar asks if they seriously think Schmick's daughter could take on the boss by herself, then asks if they're even embarrassed to call themselves the Big Three after this. Eckhart asks Waldemar if he's for real about actually taking down the boss. The guy just smirks and says he's right, since he's the one holding the sword. He tells them it's time to get back to the very first thing they were talking about. There's a box sitting right there, and something is definitely hidden inside. Waldemar explains that when he first crushed the boss, he scored the Tablet of Prophecy, which had a mysterious quote on it. Eckhart asks what's actually written there. Waldemar fires back that the future is nothing but straight-up chaos. The sign warns that when a bright star shows up, a massive boss invader is going to drop down and wreck the whole city. Everyone in the room completely lost it the second they heard about the raid boss. The guy says that starting from today, it's all going down in about 2 months. This raid boss is a total monster who could wipe a whole country off the map, and if he isn't stopped, Garibos is history, leaving a terrified Orya to just... Waldemar calls them out, asking if they're all wondering if every adventurer in Gribos teaming up would actually be enough to take him down. The leaders of the Great Three are staring each other down, and you can totally feel the tension. Eckhart realizes that to get every adventurer on the same team, they absolutely need Guillermo, the leader of the Nameless Clan. He looks around, totally lost, and asks where he even is right now. Waldemar drops the news and tells them that Guillermo is actually dead. The whole squad just stares at him in total shock. Eckhart straight up asks Waldemar if he's the one who did it. The guy just stays totally chill and says he didn't do it. Garrick thinks the Nameless Clan leader probably bit it in some dungeon, and even though those guys are total jerks, they're still part of the Big Three, which makes him wonder what kind of monster could actually take down Guillermo. Eckhart grills Waldemar on how he was the first to know about the prison death, but the guy just tells everyone to chill since talking won't bring Guillermo back. He warns them the raid boss is right around the corner and says they need to stop yapping and focus on what actually matters. Since nobody's complaining, Waldemar tells everyone to get back to the main topic. He checked out the info he scored right after taking down the boss. In just 2 months, a massive raid boss is going to show up right here in the city. If they want to survive this mess, every single adventurer has to team up with Garabosu, but Guillermo, the leader of the Nameless Clan and one of the 3 big bosses, has totally vanished, and now the rest of the adventurers are struggling to work together. Next up, Waldemar asks what they're supposed to do about the huge emptiness left behind now that Guillermo is gone. Georg asks Waldemar straight up if they can actually count on him to help out. He says no way, and asks if they're seriously trying to get help from someone who already left town. Waldemar tells them they're on their own for this choice, but Ecker thinks they should just ask. Meet Sanada, a total legend who even the top Nameless Clan warriors respect for his insane leadership and big-brain tactics. Georg warns that it's a terrible idea because the guy has a super shady reputation, and Eckhart totally agrees. Georg nominates this guy Zephyr, the absolute best swordsman in the Nameless Clan who's supposedly even more skilled than Guillermo. Eckhart shuts him down too, saying Zephyr is just obsessed with his own power when the clan actually needs a real leader to take charge. The guys brainstorm who else could take the spot, but Eckhart says Kabanur is out because he totally loses his cool in the middle of a fight. Orya asks if anyone in the Nameless Clan can really become the leader, and Aper confirms that the strongest person usually gets the job. The sorceress says she's got someone in mind too, a guy from Guillermo's old squad who's also a member of the Nameless Clan. She suggests bringing in an honorary critic for the job, but Eckhart thinks she's lost it and asks if she's talking about a level 1 prisoner, while Garrick snaps that they don't have time for jokes. Waldemar was totally caught off guard, but he instantly realized this plan was actually genius. He shuts the whole thing down and tells everyone the meeting is officially over. The guys try to shut him down, saying they haven't even picked a new clan leader yet, but Waldemar realizes they're totally forgetting something. Garibos is the ultimate city for adventurers, so you've got to dive in head first and start making moves like a real legend. The Nameless Clan is throwing a massive tournament to find their strongest warrior, and anyone aiming for a spot in the Great Three can jump in and fight until the very end. The last person standing is officially the new boss of the Nameless Clan. A new heavy hitter just joined the Big Three, and while Henri marches into the dungeon, the kid behind him begs for help to save his brother. Nextohan is starting to act super weird. The girl drops straight to her knees. Henri whips around and asks what happened, but Shan doesn't say a single word. It's like she's staring straight into a bottomless pit that never ends. Deep down, it was just straight up dark and cold-blooded. Suddenly, she bolts and ducks behind the boxes around the corner. He realizes everything is going down exactly like it did before, and nervously calls out Necton's name. She's curled up tight and shaking like crazy, but she won't say a single word. Henry sees his buddy shaking and sweating like crazy, so he reaches out to check his forehead, but a girl suddenly blocks him and tells him to back off, only for Henry to tell her to quit resisting. He touches his forehead and realizes it's actually ice cold. Henry was on the edge of a total meltdown and had no clue what to do next. Whatever's going down, he's got to make a move right now. Back at the armory, the blacksmith tells his assistant to take over because he's suddenly hit with a massive urge to craft something, and he heads straight to the workshop. As he rushes off, the blacksmith realizes he hasn't been this hyped for work in 10 whole years, and it's all because that girl smashed his shields. He clenches his fist and makes a promise. He's going to use his own hands to build the most overpowered weapon in history. It doesn't matter if it's a shield or something. As he leaves the shop, Koval realizes that if he can just craft some super strong gear, he'll finally be able to actually help Honora out. But this girl? She's on a whole other level. He's already learned that looks are deceiving in this city, and he honestly loves how easily Necton just rips through every shield in her way. Koval figures he's got to thank her later, but right then Henri comes sprinting over like a flash with a guy named Chan on his back. He says he's totally shocked because he was sure that dude was heading straight for the dungeon. Henry asks the blacksmith for a quiet spot where the girl can rest, but the guy is dying to know what actually happened to her. He keeps begging for help, telling them they're literally his last hope and he's got nobody else. The guy laughs and says it's a total no-brainer because he's obviously down to help. He lives right around the corner, so he tells Henri to just come over to his place. The blacksmith takes the guy to a room with a massive double bed. He explains it's his lover's bedroom and tells him to make himself at home. Henri gently rests a hand down on... She dives under her blanket in a flash and won't stop shaking. She's just staring off into nothing with these totally blank eyes. He's trying to figure out if Nick Tachon is actually okay and what the heck happened, but she's just mumbling total nonsense back at him. Suddenly, she snaps and screams for everyone to back off, shoving Henri and asking when she ever even asked him to look after her. She boots him out of the room and tells him to go save his brother right now, leaving the blacksmith totally confused as he asks if someone is actually in danger. Henri turns around and says, "Yeah," and the guy gives him a quick thank you. He says the big three run this entire town, so only the strongest adventurers actually get to have any fun. The blacksmith tells Henri to relax and just head out, promising that someone is definitely back home keeping an eye on Necton. The kid hesitates for a second, but then he's all in and promises to be back as fast as he can. He tells the guy to keep an eye on her while she sits on the bed, but then someone accidentally blabs that she's been acting super weird and has totally lost her mind. She's a total beast and is absolutely dominating this raid. She was literally born to wipe out the entire human race, and just thinking about it makes Chan start grinning like a total psycho and laughing to himself. Suddenly, there's a loud knock at the door. She spins around totally annoyed and says she's done with everything, but right as she's wishing for some alone time, the door flies open, and it's definitely not Ree or the blacksmith standing there. Then there's this other girl, and she is seriously tiny. Henry's dying to find out what actually happened to Chan. She looks nothing like a final boss. She's actually just a normal kid who gets super hyped whenever she tries new food. This guy's getting some seriously bad vibes about what's coming next. Henri is booking it, thinking he needs to finish this rescue and get back fast, and it looks like he's already found the dungeon entrance. This is the Bnero dungeon, and it's ranked at an E++ difficulty level. That guy says his brother is around here somewhere, but you've got to be at least level 32 just to step foot in this dungeon. This dungeon popped up right inside the roots of a massive tree, and it's way too deep and confusing for any F-rank rookie to survive. Andre's wondering how a level 1 rookie forgot to show up, how he'll ever find him, and if he's actually strong enough to handle this on his own. He walks a bit further down the tunnel and spots a beautiful crystal glowing with a soft light. When a monster gets taken out, its body vanishes and leaves behind a trophy that's worth a massive fortune to any adventurer. Henry kneels down to get a good look at the magic stone, thinking about how people usually risk their lives in dungeons for loot like this. But this one is just sitting right there on the ground. He's wondering if he should grab the trophy, but then he spots something else entirely. There's a long chain of magic stones lined up here, showing the exact path another traveler took. He keeps pushing forward, following the crystals like a trail of breadcrumbs. These things are scattered all over the place and nobody has even touched them. It's basically like finding free cash just sitting on. Maybe this spot is just for the pro adventurers who are already totally loaded. Or maybe the people passing through here just had way more important stuff to deal with. He keeps following the trail of crystals, dying to see where they're actually leading him. He's just praying that his brother is going to be okay. With his thick black hair and left ear piercing, my brother is a famous adventurer who always has his shield ready, but right now he's barely surviving a battle against a giant rooster with a snake tail. He barely dodges the next hit and crashes to the floor, but that monster is already turning back to finish him off. He realizes he's staring down a level 30 cockatrice that's basically laughing in his face since he's only level 1. He scrambles to climb up and yells to his buddy that there's absolutely no way they can beat this thing. Sanad tells the kid one more time that he's not helping, and if he's too slow to get the message, that's his own fault. The guy scoffs, saying adventurers today are total wimps compared to the insane monsters he fought back when he was only level 1. This dude is in total shock, and it's pretty clear that trying to have a normal conversation with him is officially off the table. Senna hypes her friend up and tells him to fight like it's his last stand, so the terrified boy turns back to face the cockatrice. If he tries to make a run for it, his mentor is going to take him out instantly. How did he even end up in this mess? That cockatrice is straight up attacking him. Sonata says the only way to really level up is by taking down someone way stronger than you, and since he did it himself, he's sure this guy can pull it off too. The guy stares at his mangled arm in pure terror, realizing it's game over for him. There's no way he survives this now that the cockatrice just smashed his shield into a million tiny pieces. The beat-up adventurer finally loses his strength and crashes to the ground. The council orders the kid to get on his feet and grab his axe. Letting out a heavy sigh, the guy admits he's totally tapped out and can't fight anymore. The council mocks him, asking if he's really about to turn tail and run away like a total coward. The traveler snaps back that he's officially done with all this. Synod asks if this guy is really trying to say he's acting like a scared dog with its tail between its legs. The beat-up adventurer just sighs and admits that, yup, he's actually a dog. He's basically a pathetic, beaten-down dog, crying his eyes out and begging for someone to save him. The guy screams his head off that he doesn't want to die and begs Sanada to save him. It works exactly like he wanted, and since he's totally full of himself, he thinks people look their best when they're desperate and begging for his help. Whenever the Synod saves someone from a monster, they get hit with a massive wave of emotion. The smiling guy looks at the mess they're in and realizes there's no turning back, so he's totally ready to throw down with that cockatrice. He's got no time left, but Henri suddenly crashes into the fight and chops the monster's head clean off with one single swing. Sinai is totally speechless and has no clue what to say. The kid totally ignores him and rushes to the wounded man, telling him everything's fine and that he came just to save him. The traveler barely manages to say thanks before he completely blacks out. The kid tells him to hang tight while he goes to find some herbs, but Synod is looking darker than a storm cloud and looks like he's actually thinking about hurting himself. He snaps out of it fast because a real gentleman never lets his feelings show. He's totally fuming and ready to end Henry for stealing his happiness, squeezing his cane so hard that his fingers literally start to crack. Wait, he looks closer and realizes it's actually Henri. The kid is hyped that he managed to heal the wounded, and Sanad is looking at him like he's a total legend. A guy asks if Henri has finally shown up to save them, and he gets a solid yes. Sanad asks again if he's still that same level 1 prisoner, and Henri just shrugs and says, yeah, something like that. This guy is totally hooked and keeps his eyes glued to the kid without looking away for even a second. Sanad drops a bombshell and reveals he's actually been on Henry's side this whole time. This is the same dude who totally failed to level up his dodging, and now this guy is super hyped to see what kind of crazy adventurer he'll turn into with such a rare skill. Sonad throws his arms wide and announces that his whole mission is to raise the strongest adventurers from scratch, calling himself the ultimate collector of newbies, and everyone knows he's the real deal. The guy introduces himself as Synod Sullivan, and immediately says sorry for bossing everyone around, but Uner thinks he's being way too pushy. Synod is still losing his mind, swearing he'd snatch the guy up for Rihanna's team if he wasn't with Guillermo, but our hero can tell Synod has no idea Guillermo is. He decides he's done with this sketchy guy for good. He hoists the injured man onto his back and tells him he's leaving, but the man starts shouting, begging him to just. He asks Henri where he's actually planning to take the kid. The hero tells them straight up that he's only there to rescue this adventurer. Synod isn't having it and tells them they can't just snatch his friend, which makes Henry seriously lose his mind. He takes a good look at the guy and asks if they're actually friends. So why didn't he help him? Hearing that makes the hero's face twist with pure rage. He says Sanada looks way better when he's actually fuming. He says he was raised to believe that spoiling people makes them weak, while being super strict is what actually builds their strength and gives them hope. The man reveals that this dude has magic, and Henry thinks it's the coolest thing ever. You have to master magic to use any spells, because without that skill, you can't cast a single thing. Tons of adventurers tried to master this skill and failed, so the only way to get it is if it's passed down through your family bloodline. But get this, some adventurers don't even know they have this talent until after they've already signed up at the church. Synod says this kid is a total beast with weapons, and since he's got insane strength and magic, Synod is sure he's going to be a complete powerhouse and is easily his number 1. Who does this random outsider think he is, telling Henri how to teach his own student? Henri totally snapped, told Virtue to get lost, and demanded to know what this education stuff was even supposed to be. The legendary hero was getting wrecked by Guillermo, but luckily he had a chance to dodge. Henry feels so bad for the guy since he was already a total wreck when he showed up, and if he hadn't escaped, who knows how bad it would have gotten. But if things keep, he's running out of time, but the hero promises he'll get the kid back to his little brother. Senhan stares him down with shaking hands, telling him straight up that he's not letting this slide. Synod says he's already hit level 89, and at this point, leveling up any further is a total nightmare. This guy heads down into the dungeon every single day, taking out monsters one by one. His level isn't budging at all, and he can't help but wonder if he's finally hit a total dead end. When things get this intense, you can't help but think back to the days when you were a total noob. There's honestly no better feeling than constantly leveling up and seeing yourself get stronger every single day. Sinai only trains these new kids to feed his hunger, and he gets super dark, warning the hero that if he messes with his one bit of fun, things are gonna get ugly. He doesn't even realize it's Henri, and while he's busy yapping away, the adventurers totally vanish into thin air, leaving him talking to absolutely nobody. Henri bolts down the aisle, thinking Synod is just spewing garbage that he can't even stand to hear anymore. He's totally selfish and doesn't care at all about helping new rookies, but he's still gonna end up being a total beast one day. Henry's not about to let Synod ruin his own life, but then a dagger whizzes right past him, and he's stunned that this guy actually just tried to take him out. And just like they guessed, Synod suddenly pops out of thin air right in front of them. He speeds through the air, catches up to the dagger, and snatches it right by the handle. Henry's jaw drops in shock, but Synod just smirks and asks him what happened. Our hero realizes he just warped straight to his dagger and wonders if he actually just teleported. Synod hurls a dagger right into the tree roots, and the guy can tell Henri is feeling pretty hyped about his own quick moves. He says the guy probably thought he could just bolt since he's so fast. The council smirks and asks if he forgot he's a pro adventurer, and the kid is absolutely terrified. He whips out another dagger and says this fast little rat is about to get punished. Henry is booking it through the deep dungeon because he just knows something crazy is about to happen. She's definitely hiding around here somewhere. He's sprinting as fast as he can, desperate to make it there before it's too late. Synod screams that there's no point in running anymore and slams his dagger onto the ground. Our hero scrambles to dodge the attack. But it's a total fail. The dodge doesn't work at all, and he's just standing there trying to figure out what the heck just happened. Then it finally clicks. His dodge skill only triggers if someone is actually trying to hit him. But get this, the thing they were attacking wasn't even real. The Synod slammed a dagger straight into the dirt. Then, something totally insane happens. Henri freezes right in his tracks, and his body just stops listening to him. Rhee's body just totally locked up, leaving him frozen with his hand reaching out. The Synod is closing in on the runaways! But it's way too late. Those massive doors are already slamming shut. The guy realizes the hero didn't just ditch him, he's actually charging straight for the boss's office. The door slams shut, and Synod is officially stuck on the outside. The boss room stays locked until the current fight ends, so groups don't get mixed up, and the guy thinks Henri is a total genius for using the magic circle in the reward hall. Synod's pretty sure there's no way he can take down the boss while babysitting a total level 1 rookie. The boss in this room is the Basilisk, and fighting him solo is a total death wish because you need a full squad where everyone plays their part to win. The guy puts his daggers away and says if someone like him was standing by Henri, that talk would have gone down way differently. The council noticed the hero didn't level up after the fight, making them wonder if he's not the strongest anymore, or if something way weirder is going on. He snaps out of it when he realizes none of this even matters anymore, since Henri has probably been dead for a long time anyway. He thinks it's totally crazy to hold on to something that'll never happen, so Synod tells him to stop living in the past and pulls out a magic suitcase. He's just whistling a little tune while he slowly digs deep inside. He jams his arm in all the way to his elbow and screams for them to stop hiding and get out here. Cinna finally traps someone in the suitcase and drags them into the light, revealing a totally worn-out traveler who's begging to stop fighting. She's shaking in fear as the guy pulls another prisoner out of the suitcase, but this one is also definitely not happy to see the mentor. Synod is snatching up low-level adventurers one by one like he's building a collection, and whether they're raging or sobbing, they all have one thing in common. They're totally desperate to get away. This guy is keeping a super close eye on his crew to make sure they stay safe. The adventurers back away, and Synod acts like nothing even happened as he offers to pick his next student. The guy asks what really happened to his old student Tito. He keeps demanding an answer, but the guy just stares back in total silence. He finally tells them Tito finished his training and is so insanely strong you'd barely recognize him, making everyone's faces light up with hope. Now everyone's hyped to try it out and finish their training, and the Synod is stoked because this is exactly the vibe they were looking for. He's convinced that if these kids just put in the work, they're 100% gonna become legendary adventurers. It doesn't matter what kind of skills they have, they're still going down. If they end up dying, they'll be even more pathetic than before, way worse than the weakest noob adventurers. So tell me, Sonata, what's even the point of all this? Henri looks totally let down as he faces the basilisk with the kid still on his back, while the beast goes absolutely wild and won't stop growling. He says sorry, and promises he's gonna wrap this whole thing up in a flash. Tito's totally out of it, but he can still hear someone shouting his name. The kid snaps his eyes open to find his dad and brother right there, and he's totally shocked they actually came to his rescue. They packed a massive basket with all sorts of bread for Henri, and the dad explains that since they run a bakery, this is the only way they can pay him back, thanking him again for saving his. Tito stays super chill and never loses his cool. Henri is totally stuck on what to do next, because he wanted to talk that struggling adventurer into leaving the Cynate group once things chilled out, but now he has no clue how to even start the conversation. Then out of nowhere, the guy says he's done with the journey and just wants to live a quiet, normal life. Henri is totally confused and asks if Tito is actually serious, especially since the guy is such a natural beast at magic. The kid admits he only became an adventurer to annoy his dad after they had a massive fight about his future. He really thought he could score some easy cash just by jumping into danger and chasing adventures. But there's no way he's ever going through that again. If you want to be a real adventurer, you need some serious guts. And Tito is totally blown away by how Henri took down those monsters without even breaking a sweat. But our hero doesn't. The kid turns to his dad and promises to keep the work going, and man, his father actually starts to tear up. He heads back to Henri and grabs his hands, and when the guy says he can never pay him back, our hero just tells him he didn't do anything wrong. The dad is super hyped and confirms it's true. His son is definitely built different from everyone else. He's been watching this city for a long time and says everyone here just drinks and laughs at adventurers whenever they fail. If Henri was actually one of the big three, the city would be way better, and that idea totally left the other guy speechless. Our hero says his goodbyes to the Pekar family, and they promise Henri that he'll always have the absolute best bread waiting for him whenever he stops by. Tito gives a nervous grin and admits his dad is just as terrifying as any monster, but he's still determined to keep his promise and learn how to bake some amazing bread. He says thanks and reads it one more time as he walks away. Our hero knows that if he's gonna save the LRF, he's gotta get way stronger as fast as possible. But that brings up a massive question. Are we really just gonna ignore it when someone else is in trouble? He realizes fast that it's totally not worth it, because what's the point of being strong if you have to give up being human? Ellerit would probably hate this, but he's just trying to be a brother she can actually be proud of when she finally gets back. Henri thinks back to Sonata, wondering if the guy even gets how serious his mistakes really are, or if he has anyone left who'd actually be proud of the person he's become. Our hero balls up his fists, thinking that if Sina doesn't have anyone like that, he actually feels super sorry for him. Out of nowhere, a girl rushes up and covers Henri's eyes, then Joker dares him to guess who it is, and Henri instantly knows it's Orya. The witch is shaking as she asks how he knew, but he just tells her it was way too obvious. She totally loves that answer, and Orya actually starts smiling and blushing, making the hero realize she's acting pretty weird. The sorceress points out that anyone hunting for the philosopher's stone is clearly trying to save someone, which is why Henri is grinding to get into Dungeon X, and he admits she's right on the edge of breaking down, but she tells them that even though it's super dangerous, she's still itching to ask what the hero would do if Orya told him the people in Garibos are whispering about a secret exit. Could actually turn him into the strongest fighter alive. Henri and Orya are just chilling on a bench together. The kid is still trying to wrap his head around what the sorceress just did. Or maybe she's just asking to hold his hand. If she doesn't, she won't even be able to get a single word out right. That's how the girl sees it anyway. Henri thinks the whole thing is super weird. Usually the witch just says exactly what's on her mind without holding back at all. The boy lets her do it, so Orya rests her hand on his palm and gives him a quick thank you. The sorceress finally comes clean, admitting that she's only half doing this for him, while the rest is for her own super selfish reasons. This might seriously be the most selfish thing a girl has ever said. Our hero's actually down to hear what they have to say. Orya kicks off her story by revealing she was actually at a meeting with the Big Three today. The kid asks if they're seriously holding a tournament to find the strongest fighter in the Nameless Clan. The sorceress says it's for real, and warns that the raid boss is almost here. She tries to say something else, but her voice starts shaking and she just goes totally quiet. She finally works up the nerve and asks if the hero wants to give it a shot himself. Unre is totally shocked and asks if she's really aiming for a spot in the big three, and she just nods like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I mean." He explains that raid bosses are way too tough to fight alone and need a massive team to take down. If they win, everyone scores huge XP and a super rare SSR item. The only catch is, because of how much they've helped out, the special guest has to step up and lead the adventurers into the fight as one of the three main bosses. If this guy is actually heading into Dungeon X, he's gonna need to level up and snag some rare loot first. Our hero asks about that rare loot again, and Orya explains that the drop rate depends on how much he actually helps out, so she tells him to join the legendary trio to boost his score and finally snag it. Orya lets out a long breath and tells Henri that if he's serious about getting stronger, this is the path he needs to take. Well, at least that's what people say. Now she's finally ready to move on to the totally selfish part of her plan. Forget that her dad literally owns the place. Orya is totally in love with this city. Ever since she was a kid, she's been obsessed with dungeon books, learning everything about the bosses and the sweet loot heroes get for beating them. She was totally obsessed with these books because they showed her exactly how to take down monsters and sneak into hidden dungeons. It was all about hidden loot and where to find weapon materials, and Orya was totally hyped just reading it. This whole city looked exactly like the stories she was totally obsessed with. The witch is totally obsessed with him, and her eyes literally sparkle with pure joy the second she says it. It looks like Henry totally gets where she's coming from. The storm keeps going, saying that in this tournament, only the people with real power get to call the shots. This is Senet Den Kefahira, a guy with a seriously creepy vibe and some nasty rumors following him, making our hero instantly remember their first bad run-in with this veteran adventurer. Then there's Zephyr, a guy who only cares about getting stronger and is already the toughest fighter in the Nameless Clan. And then there's Kabanur, a girl who completely loses her mind the second a fight starts. Word is these guys are all absolute beasts, so even if the sorceress tried to stop them, they would have just steamrolled right over her. Sure, every adventurer is a little weird, but Orya isn't about to let these selfish jerks keep trashing the city. She straight up says she wants Henri to be the one. The kid is shaking so much that the witch thinks he's just totally freaked out. But Orya pushes him to take the gamble and finally talks him into entering the tournament. Suddenly, the boy yanks his hand away from the girl's grip. The witch feels totally rejected and thinks the hero sees her as a monster now, and even though she's calling everyone else selfish, she's honestly just as bad as they are. But the hero snaps his hand back in a flash and puts it right on top. Orya stares at Henri, her eyes wide with total shock. The boy just grins, acting like he isn't scared of that news one bit. Our hero says if this gives him the power to take on Dungeon X, he's totally down for it. Turns out this dude actually grew up right here in this city. He remembers Tito's dad saying the city would be way better with Henri in the big three, but he's really starting to doubt if he can actually do what the girl wants. Orya says she knows he's got this and Rhi is totally gonna pull it off. Out of nowhere, Waldemar pops up right in front of them. Scared out of her mind, the girl reaches out and grabs Henry's hand. The guy notices her and looks totally shocked that the landowner's daughter is actually there. Waldemar can't wrap his head around how chill this guy is, but the hero just laughs right in his face. The guy says he gets it now and asks Henry if he's seriously heard this whole story before. He reminds them that he kept his word and got everything totally ready to go. Just look at his face. You can tell this guy is totally losing it. The deal is already done, and even if it sounds like a question, the look in their eyes proves Henri has already made his choice. Our guy looks everyone in the eye and swears he's definitely making it into the top 3.